From the point of view of survival, the greatest threat is most often not posed by predators, but by representatives of the same species that have an advantage in any of the characteristics. This very judgment can be applied not only to the animal kingdom, but also to humans. Study, work, love. Everyone is constantly competing with each other. Events begin on a normal business day. A young man entered the office. He was watched in alarm by all the employees. The man asked the woman if the newcomer was working overtime again yesterday. Looking back at the young man, instead of answering, she said that he was going to the boss and assumed that he had already completed his task. Seeing that the boy was coming to him, the manager trembled in fear because he didn't know what to do. The assistant reassured him, reminding him that the young man was only an intern, so the boss did not need to set himself up like that. But the boss protested. The intern, who managed to push out 3 managers and 1 director of the department in less than half a year, is just a real monster. The young man is extremely efficient at work, wise and well organized, and all who defiled him suffered a shameful defeat. The boy's behavior attracted the attention of the board of directors. The boss was afraid that our hero would stop at nothing and aim at himself. From his heart, he loudly punched the table. Having quickly mastered himself, he told the assistant that she was right, and he should not worry because he is the boss here. So, he should not be afraid of some telepathy. At this time, the young man opened the door and greeted Liu's boss, who offered him to enter. Our hero said that he brought a report. He called himself Wang Quan and added that he liked the competition. Boss Liu and his assistant stared at the intern in fright. The angry boss shouted at the boy so that he would not come. Wang Quan subsequently sat at a table and talked to the 2 girls. He thought about what happened. With a smug smile, the boy noted that the boss saved too quickly. The intern pondered whether he should change jobs as the company became increasingly bored. Suddenly, the phone received a message saying that should suit it. The guy didn't have an idea, which meant a notification. His photo was displayed on the screen, as well as a list of characteristics: endurance, reflexes, the spirit of struggle, intelligence, will, and vital energy. After notification of the analysis of the received data, a comprehensive assessment, as well as the fact that the object meets the criteria and is admitted to participate in the competition, the launch took place. The body of the frightened young man began to quickly move to another dimension with a flower meadow. Our main character tried to grab at least something during the flight, but there was a very void around. Suddenly, he saw a blonde girl who greeted him with a pleasant smile in a survival game. Sitting on a huge stone, she reported that the boy had arrived at Limitless Possessions Gods. Chapter 1. Exit the game. Players must immerse themselves in an endless new world and devote themselves to performing various tasks. There are different categories: Cooperative Quest, Universe of Dragons, Camp 9 House, Battle, Glory to the King. The girl also reported that according to the task set, players can unite, compete, resist, or even hunt each other. She then added that the game is currently becoming popular, so there will be occasional appear new players who have passed the selection system. All those present were the first chosen ones and will have to pass the test now. Quan tried to distinguish this place from real existence. He concluded that even with the use of the most advanced technologies, it is impossible to achieve such an effect. This impressed him a lot. Some of those present were not satisfied. Some demanded an explanation, others to return them home. Our hero summarized that some of them had no right to choose, and the system carried out quite radical methods. Interested in what was happening, the inquisitive Wang raised his hand and asked the goddess to ask questions. The 30th level guide, Ella, agreed to respond, but clarified that she was not a goddess, but one of the players. Her mission was to escort new arrivals to the testing site. Quan noted that in view of what was said, the girl is their mentor, so he asked her to tell what will happen to the one who fails the test and whether it will be possible to leave the game. Ella explained that it is impossible to get out of here because it is a survival game. No one will have a connection with reality. However, during the break between the passage of dungeons, you can return here for rest. Wang Quan realized that you can't do anything about the setting, but to be locked in a personal space that was quite small was already too much. The guide reassured those present and assured them that most dungeons do not pose a threat to their lives. An example is a future test, the reward for which will depend on how everyone manifests themselves. During the performance of tasks, points are accumulated that can be used to expand personal space, and they also serve as a means of exchange when creating your own heavenly corner. However, the most important thing is that the points will help you become stronger because they give you the opportunity to purchase equipment, technology, outstanding abilities, servants, charms, and even life. Ella emphasized that here players can get whatever they want while becoming stronger. The girl hastily added that all this is just a demonstration, and the awards themselves are for the highest level, and even she does not have them yet. She then explained that the newcomers would accidentally be issued 3 F rank cards with a variety of abilities and equipment. This is done so that everyone can get acquainted with how everything functions in the game as soon as possible. Skills and abilities can be mastered immediately, while equipment will be stored in inventory. All details were indicated on the personal panel. Wang happily considered his card Recharge. He genuinely marveled at the new ability, not believing that he could ever meet something like that. Ella announced the start of the trial. All personal spaces of the players shone with bright light. Our hero realized with a smile that the world is extremely big and more interesting than he imagined before. In a moment, the boy ended up in the office. He did not understand why he had returned to reality, thinking that it was not possible. The message on the panel informed that player number F233 was disabled. A reboot was required within 10 minutes, otherwise the mission would be considered a failure. After reading his status on the panel, Wang Quan realized that he could use new skills in reality. By clicking the button downloaded abilities, he learned the information about the received card. Recharging consumes spiritual energy and emits a weak electrical charge when touching an object. It is reusable functionality used for household needs. The continent of Greyfeather is an area inhabited by a large number of unclean people. The task of the newly arrived amateur adventurers was to destroy the goblins. However, these inhumans block the paths to retreat, luring their master to the lair. It seems that the hunter and the victim exchanged roles. Dungeons, Goblin Killer. The main task, to destroy the enemy's lair. Award, from 1 to 10 points. Time limit, 1 hour. You can't be caught. Buff, Heroic Bronze 5. Beginners are brave and persistent. Their characteristics have been improved by the system. Player number 234 joined. Quan pondered that it was reconnected to the system as soon as the waiting time expired. He understood that he would not be allowed to turn off completely and return to the real world. The boy was indignant that he did not manage to take some things with him. A guard appeared in his imagination who wished to find out why our hero was dressed as if before an assault. Suddenly, Wang realized that he had been shut down from the game for too long and the team had made good progress. In such games, even a few minutes of AFK can completely change the situation. The guy found his location on the map. He thought that eventually waiting for the end of the tests offline was also a good option, but at the same time it is impossible to observe the development of events and the progress of other participants. Our main character stepped behind the goblin, and until he had time to react, he delivered a strong kick. Quan was gloatingly comforted, thinking that the exams for beginners should not be difficult. The boy considered goblins to be monsters with a child's body, and therefore, in order to defeat them, people only need to overcome their fear and start a battle. There was no need to say anything about real masters who underwent professional training. In his experience, there was only a military department at the university. The rookie self-confidently adopted a combat pose and invited the opponent to battle with a challenge. Unexpectedly, the little goblin took out a firearm and pointed it at his enemy. From surprise, our main character was terribly frightened by such a turn of events. Suddenly, accompanied by the sounds of an explosion, several motorcycles left in the direction of Wang. Quan was kicking his heels hard. He had no idea why in this dimension goblins use weapons and ride motorcycles instead of walking around with sticks and throwing stones. Running, he tried to understand how to complete the mission, to destroy monsters with his bare hands. The guy came to the conclusion that this quest was created precisely in order to teach players to use internal game abilities and equipment. Flipping through the panel, Wang Quan saw the cards Shell, Vigilant Eye, and Newbie Bomb. Grabbing the bomb, he realized that they were not the cards that were issued to him at the beginning of the game. The goblin, who approached our hero on a motorcycle, swung his spear and pierced the boy's back with it. However, the attacker himself did not survive, because at the same moment, a launched bomb flew to the motorcyclist monster and a powerful explosion rang out. It was reported that the player with the number 235 had joined the system. Wang looked at his body with surprise, realizing that he had stayed in the same place when reconnected. However, the temporary account number has been changed, causing, accordingly, all information related to the past account to be cancelled. In addition to the acquired abilities, the inventory also changes. The guy grabbed a bottle with a mini version of the potion of life. While drinking its contents, he noticed that everything happened because of his disconnection from the system that mistook him for a dead man. So the account was immediately deleted. Confidently expecting a new enemy, the boy came to the conclusion that he could switch many times because this would be seen by the system as connecting a new player. Quan noticed that it can be a kind of gift for beginners, so it is unlikely that such an opportunity will arise again in the future. There was a surge in vitality, and the boy hit the goblins with a well-aimed bat. In the direction of our hero, the goblins fired a series of bullets, calling for the use of fire to defeat. Realizing that he could endlessly change game cards, Wang chose Stone Fist and Acceleration. The boy delivered a powerful blow, and the monsters flew apart. Since it all worked, Quan decided it was worth following its strategy. The young man self-confidently declared that he would pass the exam by 100%, which would ensure an impeccable start in the game. Meanwhile, the underground valley was windless and warm. Time remaining, 27 minutes and 53 seconds. Number 151 player Shen Yuji treated the girl's wounds, after which he asked her if she could go. Yui Shan, number 47, thanked the boy for using the thing he received for her. But the girl was worried that the young man himself might need this item. However, Shen Yuji only waved it off and said that he was not worried about it, because even in case of death, he would still be reborn. The player Jian Mei noted that it is necessary to find a daredevil among the participants who would agree to confirm this hypothesis at the cost of his own life in order to be reborn in his personal space. Shen Yuji said there had already been attempts. He said that one man fell off a cliff and the other hid to track what would happen next. However, both disappeared. Jian Mei stated that all this is nonsense because they are in the Dungeon of Novice Trials. Yui Shan complained that she was involuntarily put on this test, and if it weren't for her new friends who helped her, she was left to die in this place. Shen Yuji asked what they should do because the further they advance, the more likely they are to meet stronger monsters, and then the participants can really die. Jian Mei said that in reality, the essence of the mission was not to destroy evil spirits, but to teach players how to survive in different conditions. At the same time, he angrily noted that there was no clue that they should wait in a cozy place until the allotted time runs out. Shen asked if they really needed to risk their own lives for a meaningless mission. In his opinion, it even sounded absurd. Yui Shan asked if men meant that participants would never be able to go back. While they were thinking about this question, unexpectedly a goblin appeared and attacked the girl from behind. Two players rushed to help a friend, but Shen noticed that it was already too late. Wang Quan suddenly appeared. At lightning speed, he sped past the three, knocking the goblin off his feet. The frightened girl stood still and stared in daze in the trail of her savior. Shen Yuji asked if this was sometimes not the player who was not found at the rock, and he was still alive and rushed into battle as if he understood the true essence of their mission. The newcomer with number 151 noted with hatred that our hero does not worry about his life and, regardless of the future, boldly goes forward, showing incredible will in the process. Jian Mei noted that the boy deliberately took such steps to check the information, which spoke of his extraordinary determination. Yui Shan, who still hasn't recovered from the recent event, suggested that the player with the number 1985 is Wang Quan. Meanwhile, the young man was already choosing the function Exit because he believed that the combination of light boots, a scroll of rapid movement, and a rapid push has a rather tragic effect on the human body and should be changed. For a moment, Quan thought about the players he had just met. He thought that the participants are quite passive in their actions, so they do not constitute competition for him, and you can forget about them at all. By clicking button, Wang noted that after the 1000th update, the system began to issue familiar cards, and therefore their set of F ranges is not very diverse. The capacity of the inventory has long reached the upper limit of 120, so the young man decided not to clean it, but simply to remove duplicated cards. After the end of this business, our main character planned to go to the head of the goblins. In view of the background, Wang Quan guessed that he might have difficulties with the Overlord as a beginner. The young man noticed that when he re-enters the game, all the progress of the mission is cancelled, and therefore it makes no sense to kill mobs. It is worth looking for more prey for a good reward. Quan chose the right button and pressed it, confident that there was only one fight left until the end of the dungeon test. The F rank scroll made it possible to suddenly appear in front of the enemy in the best possible light. Its duration is 1 minute, and after activation, 10% was added to the action of any attribute from the inventory. After setting his sword against his rival, Wang majestically proclaimed that he had come to kill the Goblin Lord. The latter was not scary, so he immediately took out his gun and started shooting at the attacker. Our hero noted with satisfaction that he expected to meet a powerful firearm. The guy used an F-rank weapon, which had the opposite effect. As soon as he took a defensive posture, any damage directed at him would instantly turn towards the attacker. The enemy's actions were predictable, but Wang Quan knew with confidence what to do next. He used the forced action card, which brings the previously started action by the object to the end. At once, the Goblin Lord's attack turned against himself. The Wang sword raised a powerful reverse wave. The bullet ricocheted our hero's hand with such force that it began to dissolve in the system. The guy was sure that he had good inventory to end the goblin. A familiar trio of players emerged. They were in a hurry to help. Jan Mei asked how Quan realized that this was the master who had to be destroyed to complete the mission. However, our hero maliciously protested and ordered the participants not to approach. The newcomers tried to calm him down, assuring him that they were not afraid of death, nor could they leave a friend in trouble. Wang decided to put an end to the work he had started as soon as possible. Otherwise, as he believed, those people would take away all the rewards. The reverse effect is a sword that has a sharpened sharp blade that wears out quickly as soon as it is used as intended. Note: inspired by a blade from Star Wars. A message appeared on the panel. A friend sends a record of access to personal space. Answer: allowed. Invisible Warrior, 28th level, Xiaoxi asked her friend how she was doing. While passing the goodies, Ella replied to her that she had found a dragon she was going to defeat. But Xiao clarified with displeasure that her question concerned recruits. The girl reminded, since the players still cannot die, then there should be no problems. Currently, more than 100 people were in 23 dungeons and their time was coming to an end. Sai remarked that the guide takes on too much when paying for each resurrection of the newcomer. She did not understand why her friend needed it. Ella explained that in such conditions, not everyone can adapt quickly, so most will die immediately, since the mortality rate of the dungeon is high enough. The girl wished to help the new arrivals a little. In addition, the fee was not significant, only 10 points for one rebirth. Even if everyone dies at least once, it will cost only 1,000. Xiao made fun of her friend, which does not take into account the expansion of the game space, because no one needs majestic landscapes in the midst of a battle. The guide replied that there was nothing wrong with her being an aesthete. Sai then asked about the D-rank artifacts needed to move to the 30th level, asking if everything was ready. Ella assured that everything is fine because she has more than 30,000 points. However, after reviewing her balance, the guide was unpleasantly impressed. The balance was 2,333 points. Xiao shouted at her friend for the fact that the resurrection was worth about 28,000 points. She asked how many newcomers she brought. It didn't look like they died more than 100 times. Ella decided that her death was the best way out of this situation. Sai protested and said that it would not allow her to do so. The panel showed information that the mission has been completed. The main task of destroying the dens of goblins is 100% complete. The player received points and a divine box. After reading everything, Wang Quan noted that an additional award was made for the ruler. The guy was happy that he had enough reserves to win, and he also passed the other players. In turn, the Troika was surprised that the mission was over, as the time for its implementation was still running out. Jian Mei concluded that the assassination of the Lord was the decisive moment of the ordeal. Number F, player 2795 completed the Novice Dungeon Challenge, so he was sent to personal space. Wang Quan received the first level and a permanent account. But the boy was somewhat upset since there was no free cheese left in the mousetrap. The personal space seemed too poor to the young man. In the panel, he read what possibilities there are for turning this place into a more comfortable one. Each player could expand the space at the cost of 1 point per square meter. It was also possible to purchase furniture, decor, change the landscape, etc. However, Quan had a different opinion. He felt that it was not worth spending expensive points on such nonsense, as he could exit the game at any minute. Of course, the young man was going to spend his earnings on something that would make him stronger. The guide tried to find any information about such products on the panel and buy them. Our hero called a guide. Sai appeared on screen to welcome the official player Limitless Possessions gods and help him understand the exchange system. Quan noted that recruits had a different tour guide before. The girl explained that there were some difficulties, but she herself will explain how you can spend the earned points. Bonus points is an exchange currency that can be used to expand personal space, purchase priority items, enhance abilities or equipment, resurrection in dungeons, and more. You can still buy gift boxes, but the level of its content directly depends on the level of the player. A novice can only open an F rank box. The probability of receiving an E rank card is 5%. Quan was disappointed with the lottery principle because he wanted to immediately purchase improvements for his abilities and inventory. The guide explained that if he has a happy hand, he will be able to draw an E rank card. The girl added that, of course, he may have less than 10 points, but to improve his personal space, you need to go through new missions in dungeons and receive more points for them. At the end of the conversation, the guide waved her hand to our hero and said that they would see each other again. The guy thanked for the explanation. Wang reflected on the fact that other players may have less than 10 points. He had 25 of them, and he also had a bunch of F-rank stuff. This gave him significant advantages at the start. Our hero decided that these children's toys were not stupid. He himself thought about what subject he needed to improve. The guy hesitated which card was better to choose. In the end, I decided to test fortune once and pressed the panel button. The small box opened instantly, and a card with the image of a bottle flew out of it. An enraged Wang Quan hurled the bottle of joy potion, resenting his loss in the lottery. The guy hastily decided to open other gift boxes, sure that they also contained similar nonsense. However, the bright light pouring out of the box attracted the attention of our main character. The young man received E-rank equipment, Lucky, Sacrificial Cloak, and Canon H28G. He was very satisfied with the result. The next step was to choose one of these special reward cards. Quan decided to take his time. The guy came up with a plan according to which he will leave the game, wait for the next message from the system, and then choose one of the provided abilities depending on the situation. Wang found himself off the grid, but had to return there within 12 hours. Sitting at his desk, he realized that half a day had already passed. The guy realized that having an official account can be offline for much longer. As soon as Quan thought that there was no reason to worry about how the head of the department approached him, Liu leaned towards our hero, who did not yet fully understand the behavior of his boss. The boss gloatingly asked the intern if he was really sleeping at the workplace. Card, Potion of Joys. After application, the player's speed increases by 5 seconds. There is also an explosion of joyful emotions within 20 minutes. Wang Quan, smiling cheerfully, asked the executive what he needed from him. Liu replied gloatingly that he had caught the perfect intern red-handed and threatened to show him true hell. Suddenly, an assistant ran up to them and anxiously began to call out to the manager in her voice. But he shouted menacingly at her so that the girl would unhook because he was terribly busy. Wang only smiled joyfully at his words. The alarmed secretary explained that the head of the head office had arrived. Many people came with him to conduct an inspection. Office workers bowed their congratulations to the director of Lin Shao. Straightening up, the head of the Liu department adjusted his tie. Then he said that the intern was very lucky today. With a gloating smile, Quan looked at the boss. This scene seemed more and more interesting to him, and, not wanting to stop there, he used the ability Forced Actions. A subordinate approached Lin Xiao that they were by no means expecting him to arrive today and clarified whether there was no appropriate order from the board of directors. Responding that it was an unscheduled inspection, Xiao looked at Liu, who was raging at the intern and threatening to fire him. The boss of our hero, feeling the surge of strength, recommended the boy to kneel before him and begged to change the decision made. Wang has been fun so far. Liu reminded that thanks to the young man, the company rose rapidly. The boy had excellent recommendations from the university, and his abilities were interested in the main office. The boss began to boast that thanks to his tricks and greed, he had taken most of the credit for himself and could currently throw the intern out of the company. Liu assured that he would not consider the director or other officials from the head office as he left the last word in his branch. Looking around, the boss saw a distinguished guest behind his back and trembled with fear. Our main character stood up and began to applaud him. Lin Xiao also joined the boy. Ashamed of the situation, Liu was horrified to see that everyone around the workers was clapping their hands. Embarrassed, the boss bowed low in front of those present. He tried to justify himself, saying that all this was a prank. Sitting in a white limousine, the director of Lin Xiao ordered the driver to drive because things in this office were over. Overwhelmed with despair, Liu's boss tried to realize that he had just been fired. The newly appointed CEO of Wang Quan was delighted to have achieved his goal too easily with the abilities of the lowest F rank. Looking through his notes, the boy decided that his initial plan of action, according to which the next point was to win human hearts and achieve greater results, was no longer relevant. Currently, the young man was not interested in real life because in the game he had unlimited opportunities and could travel to different worlds. With a weekend ahead, Wang decided he could afford to play all night. He considered the biggest advantage of his career growth to be the possibility of his own office, because having his boyfriend would not need to worry that his colleagues would notice the manager at the game. Quan decided to find out what was happening to those who could not leave the game. He entered the request, reasoning that among the news should appear to be a collective coma or the sudden death of a large number of people. At first, it was about a student who lost consciousness. In it, Wang recognized a girl who was trying to take away his award. He then found information about the disappearance of a family with 3 members. The boy read that the girl lost consciousness after being treated by doctors, and later she disappeared altogether. All hospitals in the city made a statement that there were no patients for hospitalization with a similar description. Suddenly, the video Quan was watching became unavailable, and the network offered to watch other content. Looking through this message, the guy realized that something was not going well. An ambulance approached the building. Medical workers entered the office. The assistant tried to stop them in front of the CEO's office. However, the men broke into a room in which no one was. The secretary explained that the director has already left. Looking at the ambulance, Quan noted that he was wrong. Real life can also be quite interesting. Forced action, duration, and end result depend on mental resistance to the goal. It takes 5 seconds. Note, you can never know in advance what to expect from a disciplined person. After some time, our main character went to Linzhong University. The player reflected on the fact that in real life, there are also people responsible for sending newcomers to the system. However, the boy did not yet know all the details, so his every wrong move increased the risks for him. In his thoughts, he came to the conclusion that such people definitely do not want to be declassified. The young man greeted his friends. The session was approaching, so the library study hall was completely filled with students. Wang decided it would be a safe place for him. Our main character counted on the fact that university students would become his reliable cover. Suddenly, the students near whom he sat down, seeing the boy, hastily began to collect their belongings and run away under imaginary pretexts. Some mentally called the young man a monster who studies 3 specialties at once and receives the highest points for his works. Others couldn't understand why he showed up here because he was an intern at the firm. Frightened that his plan had failed, Quan tried to stop the crowd by explaining that he had come here today not to study. Lin alone did not collect textbooks and notebooks. She decided to stay in the reading room. Wang understood that there would be no overflow if he stayed in the library alone. So the guy used the card coercive action. When asked by her friends, Lin replied that she needed to finish writing the report at all costs. The students wished her success and, waving goodbye, walked away from the room as soon as possible. With great surprise and fear, the girl tried to interpret her own act. Kwan approached the student and offered her to work together, to which she immediately agreed. The guy was angry with his incredible ability, which made it possible to control other people in the real world. However, the first priority for him was to build a unique security system for himself and gain new abilities. Deciding that the time had come, our hero comfortably sat next to the laptop monitor and started the game. After congratulating the player, the system offered to choose one of the levels, given that the dungeon rewards directly depend on their difficulty. Wang pondered which option was worth considering: light, regular, heavy, or very heavy. On the one hand, it would be logical for him as a beginner to choose the first level to familiarize himself with the gameplay and become more experienced in various aspects. On the other hand, it can take too much precious time. So after thinking everything through, the guy I chose a very difficult option. The system has completed the data selection and selected the appropriate level: Dungeon Bloody Tower. It was a cursed land. The devil reigned here who went hunting every night. 9 daredevils stormed the castle to stop its outrages. However, the henchmen of this evil already expected unfortunate players. After reading the terms and analyzing everything properly, Wang concluded that this game is a regular PvP. At launch, the system found that Kwan had not taken the awards, so offered to make an immediate choice. The young man was very outraged by this, as he could not choose after the start of the game, and the previously acquired equipment was no longer available. The hero continued his reasoning. The sacrificial cloak causes AoE damage to enemies that bypass from everywhere, but in PvP mode it will not be the best choice. A lucky coin is a universal thing, but without E-rank artifacts, it is not something thorough and capable of changing its position at a critical moment. The remaining gun was also inappropriate for this kind of dungeon. Wang faced a really difficult choice. Meanwhile, Lin watched the boy, not understanding what he was doing. She wanted to leave the reading room, but she wasn't brave, so she hesitated and tried to come up with an excuse to run away. Approaching Kwan, she assumed that he was training listening, so the girl did not want to disturb the student. Suddenly, the young man, who had previously been sitting straight at the table, began to bend over and fell directly on Lin's chest. The student was embarrassed. She was very stunned by this situation. At the same time, the young man calmly continued to sleep. In the game, Wang found himself on a huge 4-poster bed. He noted its pleasant-to-the-touch softness. Looking around, the boy did not believe that evil spirits had settled in such horoms, which had a rather good taste. In the message, the system congratulated the young man in the Bloody Tower and announced his identity: a demon. Lucky. Absorbs the luck of the owner, making him unlucky. If necessary, the owner can toss a coin, which will significantly increase his chances of success within the next 3 seconds. In the dungeon, there is a confrontation between 2 teams, one of which consists of 6 daredevils, the other of 3 demons. Main mission: Team Victory. If at least one player remains alive, then the entire group is credited with winning and each receives 50 points. In case of defeat, these points are deducted from the score. Side quests: a gift box with F-rank artifacts, 10 points for killing other players, and 10 points for every 20% of the area explored. Every hour after the sound of the bell, an effect will be imposed on the player's bloody moon. Daredevils will lose one of their senses and associated abilities. The fighting power of demons will increase in shock. The tower is full of secrets, clues to reveal the identity of demons, ways to enhance demonic abilities, and special rewards. The rules seemed quite simple to Kwan. He pondered whether to prevent daredevils from receiving clues, or whether it is better to confuse everyone at the justice meeting, where anyone can be chased out of the game by voting. Before the start of the competition, demon players have 3 minutes to familiarize themselves with each other. The first to say hello was Liu Shenjun, Fanatic Level 9, who offered to destroy the opponents together. Sui Miao, Hurricane Tier 10, pointed out that their team had a rookie present. The girl asked Kwan how he ended up here, because the participants should have approximately the same rank. Our hero apologized embarrassingly because he did not know that the selection takes place according to the hierarchical principle. Miao noted his courage but reminded him, although the mission has a decent reward, and in case of defeat, the boy will not be able to pay the debt. The negative balance does not equate to death, however. Wang will receive a bloody tag, which will mean no protection from the system and the possibility of being seriously injured during the next mission. Our hero recalled that the guide did not tell him this important information. It was during this time that Ella was in despair after losing her points, while a friend tried to calm her down. Sui Miao told the boy that he was very lucky because the players of the 10th level, experts in their field, consider themselves bosses in this dungeon. The girl will be happy to show what a real game is. Shenzhen added that this time it will allow Quan to enjoy the rewards that will be received thanks to him. Our hero promised not to herd the hindquarters. Miao supported his fighting mood, noting that the boy could become a good player. Shenzhen offered to discuss the information provided. He himself was on a certain floor, in a room with forbidden literature, which he wished to destroy so that it would not reach the enemy. The girl was in a torture room, the door of which cannot be opened. She saw a tower and a corridor from the window. Wang reported that he is now in a bedroom, the door and window of which also do not open, and the glass cannot be broken. He didn't know if all this would change after the game started. Sui explained that nothing will change behind the tower and the door will definitely open. She suggested that the system would not expose them to daredevils right away, so they should also be scattered around the rooms. The goddess of darkness told Liu that they would soon meet the players, but the system would not allow them to have an advantage while constantly in the dark. Miao said the newcomer should at least protect himself, and she and the fanatic will meet at the bell tower and survey the area. Everyone should be gathered and remain calm. Wang noticed the high level of the game. He liked that this couple thinks and acts rationally, has clear goals and plans to achieve them. The boy believed that new acquaintances could be relied upon. The time of acquaintance was over, so the door could already be opened. Quan reflected on the fact that other players are also taking their positions. When he got to the corridor, he thought that it was the same hurricane he saw from the outside. As expected, the brave were in their places in different rooms. The man who left the next room was surprised by the first level of our hero. The newcomer thought he had better hide well because two of his team did not expect anything else from him. Quan hoped to wait for the right opportunity and win without loss. Between the upper floors, the Miao fight with the player of the brave team was gaining momentum. The man, who had fallen to fate after the attack, used a reflective prism against his enemy. The girl gloatingly reported that he was acting too slowly and struck. A daredevil player with a machine gun tried to help his team members. Another participant suggested that those who started the fight were demons. A sudden, powerful explosion momentarily stopped the work of the machine gunner, who was forced to retreat. Shenzhen smugly proclaimed that the black flame of hell could not be defeated. But it was at this time that a girl from the enemy camp sneaked up behind him and struck her heart directly with a dagger. Before saying goodbye, the mortally wounded Liu said that the battle was beautiful. Soon after, another powerful explosion rang out, and a cloud of dust and stones flew in different directions. The fanatic was self-destructing. The girl who killed Shenzhen thanked her friend for his help because she almost came under fire. He replied that he was just lucky enough to show up on time. Sui Miao managed to remove one opponent, but she herself was wounded by an explosion. She said that she was diligent during the mission, but now she is leaving the game. Thus, 3 players were eliminated. Quan was impressed by this development. Effect the Bloody Moon was supposed to come in 57 minutes. Yui Shan recognized our hero, remembering that they had already met in the Dungeon of Newcomers. The young man greeted him. He also remembered the girl, which he thought he wanted to appropriate his rewards that time. Suddenly, Quan noticed that Yui had reached the 2nd level, and it really impressed the boy. He realized that he was lagging behind the worthless girl, which hurt his ego. Wang believed that while he was vacationing in the real world himself, Shan wasted no time and found a way to quickly level up, either by discovering a hole in the rules of the game or by bribing the guide. Our hero thought that the girl was only disguising herself as innocent, but she herself was a real monster who wanted to become stronger and destroy everyone in her path. Approaching the boy, Yui asked why he chose this mission with only the 1st level. Quan thought the girl was going to make fun of him. Shan assumed that the young man, like her, pulled out a lucky ticket. Wang could not understand what she was talking about. The girl explained that the artifacts allow players to pass through random dungeons. In this way, it is easiest to get awards at low levels. Yui was afraid to stay in her personal space, so she used these cards. Quan realized that in this way the system helps beginners to raise their level faster. Sean said it can only use the artifacts 3 times. The first time, an easy mission fell out, and good participants helped to finish it. This time the dungeon was of the highest degree. The girl was very nervous, but from the beginning her team was lucky. Our hero smiled embarrassingly, remembering his position. The machine gunner expressed regret that their friend He Xiao Tan was out of the game so quickly. Yui Tun, soldier 7th level along with 2 other contestants, approached the newly fallen players. Mao Yiwen, all at once level 8, reported that she knew Xiao Tan. This handsome guy always helped his team get extra rewards. Tony, Guardian 7th level, said that he also once played with He, who had the title of Explorer, and he really deserved it. Wang concluded that in this mission the most important is to calculate the demon, and Xiao Tan had a talent for it. So it became clear why Sui Miao decided to remove the enemy as soon as possible. Our hero guessed that Liu Shenjun noticed how quickly help was approaching, so he decided to block their passage to buy a little time. Iwan said that she barely dodged because the self-destruct reception was quite frightening. Tony confirmed that he had to work hard to save the girl. Quan concluded that personal qualities and individual abilities of each player are important in this game. Thus, in order for the efforts of his team members not to go to waste, he had to act. However, the boy was not confident in his abilities because he considered his level too unsuitable for this. Effect, he was inactive on the bloody moon. Reinforcing all of the demon's powers by even 150% offered no advantage to Wang getting rid of at least one of the enemies. The boy had only one way out, to explore the tower and pump up his abilities. The young man gloatingly thought about what would allow his rivals to kill each other. Tricking, our hero asked if he and Yui Shan could come in handy. The girl emphasized that they are newbies, so they do not know what needs to be done. Iwan only now mentioned the new ones. Yui Tun advised them to explore the area and wait for the meeting. Quan replied that during the battle, he immediately noticed a lack of his fighting power and experience, which significantly limited the potential of the entire team. It's good that they were lucky, and everything ended in their favor. The keeper pondered why the demons decided to split, because indeed, the presence of newcomers reduced the full specificity of the team. After leading on, Wang suggested that the two were quite strong rivals who sacrificed themselves, so their trump third demon must have remarkable abilities. The amazing power of the opponent must be enough to destroy all the brave. The trio thought anxiously about what they had heard. Discord began between the participants. Mao suggested that with a soldier's abilities will become incredible in a bloody month. Tun turned the angle on the keeper, who never went on the attack. While the trio sought the truth, Quan rejoiced that he sowed doubt in their hearts. This significantly increased his chances of success. Suddenly, a giant hand grabbed the boy by the head and clenched him into a strong fist. Our main character managed to free himself before the stranger almost crushed him. Yui Shan asked in fright who did it. Tun assumed that he was the third demon. Tony concluded that the game was over, believing the lead was on their side. Lin Yao, Golem, level 9, reported that being a demon, he and Sui Miao had long since finished with the players. He mocked them because the participants lightly trusted the newcomer. Golem added that the last demon is this guy who, not having the right level for a decent battle, simply bothers everyone's head. Yui Shan ran up to the wounded young man with a first aid kit. Wang tried to refute everything. He explained that he cannot be a demon because even in the final vote, he will be in the minority. Lin Yao ordered the young man to plug his pelka and pinned him in the fist of his huge hand. Mao Yiwen launched a lightning dagger attack and freed our protagonist. The guy sincerely thanked her. He himself thought about the fact that the opponent has extraordinary power and therefore he will soon have no chance to continue moving with his original plan. Quan also thought about why the enemy does not want to just kill him, because even in the first attack he took half of our hero's health, and this time he definitely restrained himself. Yui Tun recalled that they were all newcomers at one time, so you should not behave in a similar way. Tony added that in the future they may have the opportunity to play together. Wang came to the conclusion that Lin had no confidence, because after killing our hero, he would be attacked by other brave men. Quan thought that in this mission, quantitative advantage doesn't matter at all. Yao's temperament speaks of a tendency to work alone, but this time he has to put up with team play. So, Lin was not a player who accepted the internal rules of the system and the principles on which everything is based here. Golem, despite everything, wants to become a winner. Our hero recalled that at the beginning of the game, there was talk of additional rewards, so he suggested that everyone split up and explore the tower. Mao protested, because it will be easier to kill them alone and the demon will definitely hide the clues found. Wang suggested splitting into pairs. Lin added that everyone will follow their partner, and in time in the Bloody Moon, it will be necessary to make sure that the other will not be able to move in the dark. So the demon will expose itself, or they will find clues. Yao agreed with the newcomer's words that such an action plan was most appropriate. But our hero understood where he was leaning. Iwan immediately ran up to Shan and happily offered to hug, to which she reacted embarrassedly and tried to withdraw. The keeper decided to take care of another newcomer. Yui Tun agreed with this decision. However, Wang objected and wished to go with the golem. He looked at the boy in surprise. Quan explained his choice by the fact that Lin is the strongest among those present, and therefore our hero will sacrifice himself to find out which camp he is playing for, so as not to give the opportunity to act during Bloody Moon. It was decided that Yui Tun and Tony would survey the first floor and lobby. Mao Iwen of Yui Shan would take the fourth, and Wang Quan of Lin Yao would reach the second and third floors. The girls entered the room where their rival Liu Shenjun had been from the beginning. Looking through the burned books, Iwan did not believe that the boy mocked this place so much. She was sorry that possible clues had been destroyed. Shan asked her partner what clues could be given about the demon's identity, whether they would become aware of his name. In response, the player suggested calling her Mao, as she is much smaller than Yui and has passed no more than a dozen dungeons. The girl also recommended Shan to relax and enjoy the game, which she considered incredibly cool. From her experience, she said that clues can be anything that responds to intimacy with a demon. Examining the entire room, the student clarified whether they need to look for certain artifacts. Suddenly, behind her back would appear a monster that made unpleasant sounds, due to which the girl trembled with fear. Quickly reacting to the unexpected appearance, Iwan threw her dagger at the monster. Mao explained that this dungeon seemed unusual to her from the very beginning. It looks like traps were placed everywhere. She added that the level of complexity of this mission is not high, so there should not be many such items. Yui was stunned by such information. On the second floor, an annoyed Lin resented the unheard-of number of traps. First in the dining room, he was attacked by crazy rats, then a jumping box, and now the armor has come to life. Our main character, rooting for his partner, encouraged him to move forward. The disgruntled Yao outrageously remarked that the newcomer did not help him at all to fight evil. Wang understood that the goal is now a priority for the rookie defense. The accidental death of our hero is by no means beneficial, because then all suspicions will be directed at him. Lin menacingly asked if the boy was going to fall into traps on purpose, to which he replied objectively that he had no idea what they looked like, and the other was just not a happy coincidence. Yao thought about the curse placed on the boy. Since he had only F-rank artifacts, only a demon from the top 3 could do so. Quan realized that he could use his coin, activating all the mechanisms that would just fall within its range. Deciding that he does not need to fight and can simply hide, our hero went in search of artifacts that would help him become stronger. Suddenly, the guy remembered that Tower is the abode of demons, and the brave came to fight them. But he was confused by why there is a bell tower of justice in the den of the unclean to condemn the monsters themselves. To the first, there are 11 minutes left of the Bloody Moon. The justice meeting will soon be held. Number of players, 6. 2 entered the laundry room. While messing with his underwear, Quan noted that the search takes quite a long time. Yes, the searches of the entire second floor lasted almost an hour. He was very happy when he finally found something useful. A scroll was lying among a pile of linen. It was a plot artifact with a devil's contract. It said that listening to your desires will require you to pay for greed. The guy was thinking about the price in the deal if he wished not to be caught. Meanwhile, Lin noticed that the young man was reading something, so he immediately grabbed his head, demanding to give the role. Wang replied to Yao that this would not be entirely fair, as he had already given the last 3 fines to his partner. However, he threatened to break the boy's legs with a goal if he did not obey. A giant hand snatched the scroll from the hands of a poor rookie protester. Lin reassured the boy that he would protect him if he really was who he claimed to be. And for now, until then, they have to explore the 3rd floor. Quan was thinking about how to divert suspicions. He was wary of getting hit in the back. However, under the close supervision of the opponent, our hero had no chance for maneuvers. Since the lucky coin was fully charged, the boy could not use it to avoid attracting Yao's attention. On the 3rd floor, the young man noticed a hole in the wall and noted that the players had a good time here. Lin offered to see everything. In the torture chamber, the battle immediately began as soon as Sui Miao met the daredevil. Giving a kick to the first best object under his feet, he wailed his goal in irritation that it was impossible to find at least something suitable in this chest of junk and debris. Yao reminded that there is quite a bit of time left, so you need to hide safely to wait out the effect Bloody Moon. Wang agreed with him. Both entered the bedroom. It turned out not to be as refined as on the 2nd floor. Quan noticed that this room was next to the torture chamber. This led him to a different opinion. The guy realized that the room is much smaller, so he assumed that there should be a hidden niche here. Lin told the young man to shut up the pelka because he did not want to listen to his tips. Then the golem ordered our hero to follow him and not try to push anything. Wang was annoyed by his opponent's unbearable behavior. After walking to the new room, Yao stopped in surprise. The newcomer approached him and asked if he saw anything interesting. Daredevil assumed that there was a sacrificial altar in front of them. He noted that the room was very dark. Remembering the bell tower, Quan tried to understand why Lin seemed dark here, because everything was clearly visible to our hero. The guy came to the conclusion that the room is under the effect Bloody Moon, and he himself sees everything because he plays for a team of demons. Wang concluded that in fact he does not see anything with a goal, but only pretended to catch and bring the newcomer himself to clean water. The young man was glad that he realized all this in time. Otherwise, his opponent would have instantly gotten rid of him. He realized that it was impossible to relax even for a minute. In a moment, the boy came up with a new action plan. He pretended that something had attacked him and began to call his partner for help. Approaching the altar of Yao, Quan gloatingly remembered that he himself had given him complete freedom of movement. The boy woke up demonic circles and cried for help. Assuring that he could not see anything and was looking for a way out, he increasingly lured his opponent to the trap. Annoyed, Lin ordered the young man not to run around the room like a dazed man, but to approach him. At this point, Wang received a new artifact demon code. He was quite happy because he finally had something useful. Enraged by the goal, he repelled the attacks with all his might. When the fight was over, Quan thanked his partner for their help. Yao attacked the boy and threatened him not to hold him by the fool and force him to waste his abilities. Wang apologized and excused himself that he had become scared in the dark, so he panicked. The boy reminded that he was recently in this game, so he can't do anything about himself. Lin turned around and walked away. Below, they saw brave men exploring the 1st floor. Golem said that you should not stop because it will start soon Bloody Moon and they have to stay as far away from the players as possible. Yao reminded that they must find a safe shelter. Our hero agreed with a smug smile. Before the onset, there is 1 minute left of the Bloody Moon. 2 men ended up in the security room. Lin offered to wait here only by closing the solitary confinement door. This room, in his opinion, was an ideal choice, regardless of whether they will defend themselves or fight back. Wang again agreed with his words. While trying to see something on other floors, Quan asked if other players would be hiding. Yao did not know this for sure, but suggested that it would be illogical to run through the corridors in front of the demon at a time when the effect is in effect Bloody Moon. Since our hero had little information about the whereabouts of the brave, he decided to rely on his fortune and, wasting no time, start his plan. Golem approached his partner impatiently, slamming at him for staying in a place visible to the demon. Quan replied that he was waiting for Lin to check the reliability of the room so that it would not turn out like last time, where the room was full of demonic circles. Trying to grab the boy in his fist, Yao asked how he guessed that they were demonic circles. Grabbing the injured hand, the young man replied that this was only his guess. However, he noted his opponent's high speed and used it against him in enforcement action. The next minute, our main character avoided the attacks that the daredevil threw at him. Golem used a longing mind, reminding him that children's F-rank toys could not harm him. Warning that there was no point in resisting, he suggested that a true demon player was in charge of the rookie. Lin asked when they had time to agree, and if it had happened in the dark room. Wang held onto the railing in an attempt to avoid falling. Yao told the boy to confess whose orders he was following. Suddenly, the hand of our main character slipped. He could not resist and instantly began to fall down. Falling, Quan recalled that after the groups formed, the girls immediately went to the upper floors. Yao did not object, although he knew that they were more vulnerable and unprotected on the second and third floors. Wang was forced to admit that even without specialization in long distances, the golem attacks are still quite powerful. It's time, Bloody Moon. Daredevils were engulfed in darkness, endowing them with the power of demons. Falling down, Wang was glad that his long-awaited moment had come. While testing fortune, he tossed a coin. The Lucky Guy artifact was activated. After receiving a new powerful force, Quan stopped the fall and began to rapidly climb towards the opponent. Applying the opposite effect, the boy hit a huge block. The sword could not withstand the collision and broke into pieces. Seeing the damaged blade, our main character cursed. His idea did not work. Destroying all the floors of the tower one by one, the stones continued to fall down. Yao's focus suddenly evaporated when he did not receive a message from the system about the newcomer's death. Lin decided to wait for the end Bloody Moon and only then find and kill the boy. Quan fell to the living room floor on the first floor. Piles of stones lay everywhere. The boy was happy that he was able to survive thanks to the F-rank artifacts that turned out to be appropriate in this situation. He still has 72 of them left. Having drunk a recovery potion, he thought he originally wanted to use a lucky coin when voting on meetings of justice. However, it turned out to be much more useful than our main character could have imagined. He sincerely hoped that with its help, the following events would take place in a river favorable to him. On the fourth floor in the tea room, Iwan exclaimed to a frightened Shan that they had been attacked. Tony almost fell in a block. Due to the rockfall, he was sure that the third demon was Lin Yao. Through the roar, Yui Tun shouted that they should retreat because in the dark, they would not be able to fight back. In order not to be caught and to be able to calmly flip through what was one codex, Quan hid in a storeroom on the first floor. Using this time, he decided to collect story awards. Exploring the area gave plus 20%. Information about Codex. The owner of the tome had access to all the secrets of the tower. The Bloody Moon allowed for 200% improvement in abilities. It is possible to make a deal with a demon. Underground Yard. Time the remaining Bloody Month was 4 minutes and 37 seconds. A demon in knightly armor was walking on the grass. He recklessly stepped on the dead man's bone, which broke with a loud crunch. Suddenly, a girl appeared in front of him. With giant scissors, she wanted to cut the uninvited guest. In response to the attack, the knight sent the demon as far as possible with the help of his bone. After removing the helmet and taking out a bottle of potion, Quan indignantly noted that in this quest, all monsters are stunned and like to attack quietly. Repelling another attack, the boy imagined that it was probably because of his beauty and innate kindness that he had the appearance of easy prey. After breaking the door, Wang entered the room stuffed. He grumbled that the function of recognizing one's own and strangers does not work in the quest. So if not artifacts and power Bloody Moon, he could have died a long time ago. Suddenly, the young man noticed that the time of the effect had passed and the buff had disappeared. He was glad that by this time he had managed to kill all the monsters. Our hero had the assumption that by now all the other contestants are fighting each other, so if he is flattered, no one will remember the newcomer. Until then, he will rummage through story games. However, even despite the quarrels of the players, the boy still has a task that he is unable to complete due to lack of strength. According to the rules of this mission, all brave people must be removed. You can win thanks to a duel with one of the participants. With the help of a buff and bulky armor, as well as F-rank items, you can fight with various monsters. However, to go with all this against other players means signing a death sentence. So for the opportunity to win, Quan decides to get as many power boost rewards as possible that are available in this quest. The boy entered the sacrificial hall. In search of the right thing, our main character announced that he was renewing the contract. The bulky statue came to life. Players swore allegiance to the kingdom of the dead and confirmed their readiness to kill other participants. Quan reflected that if the object was activated, all demons would come out. He thought how good it was that this thing was hidden in a dark room. Otherwise, there would be no iridescence for everyone. The Demon Lord said that the main task was to anoint the golden bell of justice with defiled blood from the lake. The reward for this will be the ability of a one-time call Bloody Moon. Wang was exposed to information from an additional mission, whose awards delighted him and inspired hope for overall success as well as writing codex. The offer was tempting, but the boy decided to refuse it. The players' pieces present began to melt in the air. The main demon leaned towards our hero and ordered to prepare for the death sentence due to treason. But Quan explained, because the entire tower is the demon's territory, and it looked like the defiled blood had also long been ready. So, it will be easier for the master to destroy the bell himself. The quest began to delve. It seemed strange to Wang that in a war unleashed, the young man was given demons for Patala, although they were useful to the ruler himself. At the same time, other demons inside the tower will constantly take part in the assault. The boy noted that no one has made a single agreement with him yet, and therefore, in case of failure, they want to put all the blame on him. He guessed that the demon himself was wary of fighting someone. The angry lord released a wave of fire, but our hero calmly stood in his place. Continuing the conversation, he assumed that someone was the demon's leader. The owner reported that the person in front of him is quite intelligent, but this does not change anything. In view of what he read in the book, Quan concluded that his subordinates live in the tower, who in different ways make deals with people in order to get their souls. The appearance of the golden bell prevented this activity. Naturally, there was a desire to get rid of him. The Lord confirmed that with the help of the bell, his relatives were killed by those who violated the terms of the contract. Wang felt sorry for him. He advised to find his unique way to increase energy. And when the real value changes, it is worth finding an unknown field of activity where it will show itself the most. Surprised by such an unusual proposal and frankly not understanding its essence, the demon wanted clarification. Quan explained that he knows how to gather as many souls as possible for the master. The boy recommended himself and declared himself his best subordinate. He promised to successfully complete any given task. There is only one left to invest in this business. The demon asked what exactly this person wanted, more strength or a position in hell. With a deep bow, Wang said that he could not discuss rewards until he showed himself in the ministry, and for the best result, the boy demanded to introduce him to the owner of the Golden Bell. Mentally, he decided to find the strongest among monsters and sign such a contract. The Golden Bell of Justice is fully charged. The first appearance began Bloody Moon. Lin was in the guard room. He was angry, thinking that our hero just decided to laugh at him. Anything he wanted to put him in his rightful place and at the same time get even with the one behind the boy. Suddenly he heard a shot and immediately used the artifact protective force field. Tun realized that firing at the target triggered a one-time self-defense capability, causing the bullet's trajectory to curve and hit the object's hand. Yao approached the attacker, clarifying that since the newcomer was quite reckless and revealed his whereabouts, the owner decided to appear himself. Threatening death retribution, he stretched out his giant hand in the direction of the soldier. Resisting with a machine gun, Yui moved with a rope tied to a beam. Lin angrily remarked that the opponent wanted to escape from him, but warned him that it was too late. Pursuing the fugitive, Yao hurried up after him. Once on the fourth floor, he offered to finally finish the game. Suddenly, Mao appeared behind him. The girl attacked her opponent with a dagger and struck several blows. Lin exclaimed that she must have gone mad. The injured Tony reported that since Yao had already shown his personality during the effect Bloody Moon, it makes no sense to pretend. Golem was surprised that E-level magic was used against him. The Road of Remorse bound his legs so he couldn't move. Iwan used the Unexpected Attack artifact, attributing her revenge to payback for the recent unexpected attack on her. Lin demanded an explanation, not understanding what was happening. It seemed to him that the other players were talking nonsense, because he definitely did not attack the girl. But the boy began to guess that he could not do without a beginner here. Daredevil recalled that he constantly clarified the position of other players, and before the start, Bloody Moon appeared at the last moment. Yao stated that our main character, having deceived him, froze his head and forced him to attack everyone in the dark. Ton said that when nothing was visible, Lin decided to storm the players, guided by the theoretical plan of the attack, and only accidentally came across the shelter of the participants. The keeper added that he hit the target quite aptly, and if it weren't for his self-defense magic, he had died a long time ago. This could not be attributed to the usual happy coincidence. Mao agreed that Yao may not have had the right moment to arm himself, but he himself admitted that his target was a newcomer. It finally betrayed him. The girl added that the young man had disappeared, and there was no evidence that he had died. Lin angrily stated that he had been outwitted. He offered to go up and ring the golden bell and then attack it. The keeper agreed to do this if Yao himself expressed a desire to be killed. Tony looked carefully at the angry golem, concluding that he preferred it too much. Shan was already speeding up the stairs to the mountain, encouraging herself by the fact that she used to run in the morning and therefore she should succeed. Ewen had previously ordered her to use the hammer to strike the gold bell while others apprehend Lin, and the student agreed to do so. Finally, the girl reached the top of the tower. All she had to do was hit the bell. Suddenly, she saw her partner soar high in the sky. Yui thought that she had come to help and was outraged that she had to spend so much effort to climb to the top court. But suddenly, the girl saw a giant hand that caught Mao in her fist and flattened her. One by one, the daredevils began to be eliminated from the game. With the help of a huge stone monster, Yao climbed to the roof of the bell tower. He was very surprised that none of these three turned out to be the last demon. Shan, surrendering, fell on her knees in front of him and offered him to take the hammer. But Lin replied that he did not need him. Having walked in with a hysterical laugh, I only now understood what was going on. He underestimated the newcomer. Sitting at the top of the tower, Quan calmly watched the battle between the brave. Jumping from his seat, our hero reported that the trio was not fit for anything if a single player was able to defeat them all. Yao considered himself a true specialist and asked not to be compared by those who could not rationally use the artifacts provided to them. Wang didn't understand what it was about, so he hinted to elaborate on this information. Golem explained that players can get a variety of items so that it is not a tool or equipment. Also, participants can receive specialized artifacts that will turn them into specialists in a specific field, thus distinguishing them from among the crowd. Demonstrating the E-rank artifact scales a slate dragon, he added that such a thing can only be obtained in dungeons and recommended that Quan engage in their collection immediately. Wang thanked for the information provided, but did not understand why Lin shared it. Yao explained that the guy is on the first level, so he doesn't have enough funds to pay the penalty for losing. Thus, the next game for our hero will be a mission for survival. Golem noticed that the boy was by no means worried about it. Lin snapped his fingers, summoning his giant. Before the attack, he announced that he would look forward to their next meeting to finally crush the boy. Being in complete peace, Quan reminded him not to say yay because he had not yet won. Annoyed by the goal, he promised to deal with the boy even if he had only 3% of his health left because he did not consider the young man a serious opponent. That in spirit, shaking the bell, Wang suggested that if he was nominated for justice, he would instantly kill Shan to keep himself safe. Lin agreed with this statement, assuring that the girl would definitely not vote in favor of Quan. Yui herself did not understand what was happening and which of these two was a real demon. Our hero said that I tried very hard to bring the game to such a final, so he will definitely not give up everything for now. Hiding behind the swinging bell, the young man disappeared, leaving behind a bottle of the potion of joy. Moving at high speed and crying with laughter, Quan prepared to attack. However, Yao did not graze the rear and quickly resisted. A silicon garden began to appear on the tower. In response, Wang called for a withdrawal Bloody Moon. According to the rules of the quest, this overshadowed the brave man's eyesight. His opponent used an artifact Fierce Rush. The sharp pieces of silicon were instantly aimed at our main character. Quan guessed that the golem had several more techniques available, as he used a similar reckless remedy that covered a large area. Wang thought about pretending to be reckless and activating the effect Bloody Moon, thus confusing the opponent. Yao assumed that it was our hero's last trump card. Otherwise, Quan would have continued the attack from a distant position. The young man guessed that theoretically, the opponent could scatter stones around the entire perimeter of the tower in order to determine his whereabouts by sound. However, the newcomer believed that it was not important. The boy planned that within the next 10 minutes, he would be strong enough to stop the enemy. Suddenly, Quan noticed that blood was running down his face. He was very surprised by this. The boy thought that Yao had attacked him, but he himself did not notice when it happened. Wang quickly checked the values of the health indicators, but they remained unchanged. However, the pain and blood worried him. Suddenly, the boy guessed that someone had injured his body in the real world. In the contract with the ruler of hell was talking about permission to activate the effect a bloody moon for 10 minutes, during which you can summon a lord to reinforce your attacks at the cost of your own soul. Shortly before that, a CCTV camera recorded the following events in the library of Linjiang University. In the circumstances in which she found herself, Lin Lin firmly decided not to sleep and to prepare her report as thoroughly as possible. She was annoyed by the student's unusual dream because more than an hour had passed and he at least moved. The girl even tried to insert a pencil into his nose, but the boy did not react. Suddenly, two people approached her. The red-haired girl turned to Lin Lin and said that she was quite brave if she not only dared to come here, but also had a good time with her suitor. The frightened student tried to justify herself to the couple, but realized that she did not even know who was in front of her. The red-haired woman shouted back that her name was Sui Wan. Lin Lin recently made a report on her, for which she was punished. The girl complained that no one needed the broken headphones, but the erudite immediately ran to complain about her and even wanted to call the police. Lin Lin quickly began to apologize, saying that she did not know about the inconvenience she had created. Wan's boyfriend reassured his girlfriend by reminding Sui that he was here just to help her. The girl, passionately in love with this athlete, thanked him, calling him the best. Then the boy with a fiery gaze turned to the student with a question about how she was going to act. But seeing her fright, he added that he did not hit the girls. After that, grabbing a table lamp and hitting Quan with it, Wan's boyfriend announced that her boyfriend would answer for everything. Our hero was thrown away by a powerful wave of blow, and now he was lying with a wound on his head. Lin Lin ran up to Wang. She was desperate and tried to bring him to his senses. Sui Wan rejoiced from this scene and ordered the boy to be beaten faster. When the athlete came to his senses, he did not understand how he could do such a thing because the couple only came here to talk. He had no idea why Quan wasn't moving, so he shouted almost immediately to call an ambulance. With the help of a video camera, these events continued to be viewed. Therefore, at this moment, one of the observers on the walkie-talkie reported that the player is in a state of sleep, and the previously noticed mobility can be blamed on communication problems. At the other end of the wire, the man dressed in a medical gown and ordered everyone to be ready as he begins. Not understanding what was happening outside, our hero tried to choose what to do next. A warning was highlighted on the panel that the failure of the mission in this dungeon awaits him for leaving the game. Wang tried to reassure himself by thinking about what was currently in the library, so nothing serious could threaten him. Most likely, he just fell and hit something. But recalling the people who recently arrived at his office, the young man believed that the biggest threat came from them. Still, he assured himself that the unknown would not dare to appear in the library for no reason. Quan then made sure his real body was no longer injured, so leaving the game now would not be appropriate. In any case, if he does not receive a high-ranking award for completing this mission, then he will no longer have any chance of fighting those strangers. If you lose, all his points will be negative, and his efforts will be wasted. The situation in which he will find himself will be even more dangerous. Wang took a deep breath. Undoubtedly, all he has to do is kill Yao as soon as possible and complete the mission of this dungeon at any cost. Flipping codex, the boy turned to the venerable Lord of Hell, hoping for his favor according to the concluded contract. Dissatisfied, Lin listened to what was happening around him. He kept wondering what the young man was doing because a lot of time had passed and for some reason he was delaying and still not attacking. Blinded effect Bloody Moon, he tried to feel the wobble, but couldn't do it because Quan wasn't moving and there weren't any extraneous sounds or changes. Yao speculated that Wang just wanted to test it for aging. Golem decided to show off his strength with a cunning smile. Meanwhile, the Lord of Hell watched the battle scene with an indifferent look, and our main character demanded to implement the terms of the contract. The top of the tower caught fire. A bright light blinded Shan for a moment, and she covered her eyes with her hand. Suddenly, the girl was very surprised to see numerous black feathers circling and falling around. Our hero stood near the body of a defeated opponent. The mandate was fulfilled, but the promise made could not be forgotten. When considering the tome, Quan thought he would only wish to use the contract if absolutely necessary. However, he needed to deal with his opponent as soon as possible. Shan joyfully ran up to the young man, thinking that her team had finally won. The system announced that Lin Yao from the Daredevil team was out of the game. There are currently 2 players left. Voting time is over. The dazed girl stopped a few steps away from the boy, considering this information. Our hero used the artifact of forced action. The student froze in place, unable to move. The girl did not understand what the boy could do with her. Clinging to her a necklace of bombs, Quan finally wished to meet the next game, mentally assuming that the girl had not understood anything. Wanting to return as soon as possible to the real world, where real danger could await him, the guy was going to press the remote control button. But suddenly, the girl, who understood everything, declared Wang the last demon, calling him a liar. Quan explained that he could not afford to pay a 50-point penalty if he lost, as he only had the first level. After learning about this, the girl said that she also does not have such a sum of points. Yui asked if they could be accumulated. Our hero burst out at her for the fact that the supposedly cute girl is actually a real monster who wants to become stronger and destroy everything in her path. Shan secretly improves his abilities and goes head-to-head for his goal. And, after 3 dungeons, she cannot help but know about the rules of life and death. So just going to deceive him. The student asked what kind of rules these are. And then she asked with despair, does the player really die due to insufficient points? Stunned, Yui tried to grasp the information she had heard that she might indeed die. Quan asked with a serious look what the girl's research percentage was. Shan did not immediately understand what was being asked of her, but in a moment she remembered that she had 15%. But she did not understand why the young man was interested in it. Our hero angrily admitted that there is no benefit from the girl, so he only wastes his time. Suddenly, grabbing her hand, Quan quickly ran forward. He said it's worth exploring the map in accelerated mode, then the girl will get 50 points, which will be enough to pay the fine. But Wang warned that Yui would only have to rely on himself for the next game. Shan genuinely rejoiced and thanked him for his help, deciding of herself that he was ultimately a good man. Approaching the edge of the roof, the girl cautiously asked why they did not use the stairs. Our main character threw the girl down, explaining that they had too little time. An ambulance drove up to the university. Average Zivaks became interested in this phenomenon. Students discussed the event. Some reported that someone started a fight in the library and it seemed that some guys did not share the girl with each other. Others denied this. The athlete who hit our hero did not find a place for himself and was very concerned about the situation. One was surprised to note that the medics arrived quite quickly because she called them a few seconds ago. Lin was worried about the boy's health. The doctor tried to eliminate Sui's boyfriend, which interfered with their work. But the athlete begged the doctor to save Quan. Lin asked if she could go with them. Having carefully examined her, the man agreed to take her with him. The Lord of Hell walked down the corridor. He reflected on the fact that the boy signed a contract with self-sacrifice. Having received extraordinary strength, he seemed to be fascinated by the devil and did not hesitate to take the life of his opponent. The captive, approached by the main demon, proclaimed that the people were still stupid. The blue-eyed prisoner approached the Lord of Hell with an offer to make a treaty with him. The Lord of Darkness was still interested in the proposal, although he knew that it had nothing for mutual exchange. The demon asked what the man wanted: revenge, power, or will. The boy said with a challenge that he wanted all the monsters to leave this world. The Lord of Hell asked if he really wanted to be endowed with the power of exorcising demons. The offer was very interesting, so he asked what he would have in return. The prisoner replied that the reward would be this world. He passionately wanted to turn it into a real hell. St. Jonah spread the bells of justice all over the world, giving people the power to cast out demons, and soon they ceased to pose a threat. But meetings of justice were held as before, and the religious community consolidated its power. Taking advantage of this, politicians eliminated the opposition, and businessmen strengthened their competitiveness. The people knew that the real demons had long been exterminated, but they only covered themselves with a devilish brawl and continued to do whatever they wanted. People suspected each other, were wary and accused. In the end, a bloody fight began, which covered everything around. Ironically, that's when the demons returned. They even occupied the tower, which at first was the epicenter of their exile. Quan continued that for those who were able to survive, it didn't really matter. The guy added that real demons live in people's hearts. Shan carefully looked at the sculpture. Then the girl angrily turned to our hero with the fact that for this, he threw her off the roof of the tower and she herself almost died. Unexpectedly, the system issued a notification that the study had ended. Yui was very surprised by this event. Shan expressed her delight with our hero. She then concluded that all room and artifact surveys were worthless, as everything could be learned through Quan's proposed method. Drawing circles around the girl, the boy clarified that this is not entirely true. In fact, he asked the demon Bertie about everything, who signed a deal with Jonah and is the main one in this dungeon. Wang placed a lit candle on the floor and added that he as a demon player had no difficulty contacting the executive. Shan indignantly said that the mission is very unfair, because its rivals can directly get all the necessary information and various abilities, while the brave will not succeed at all. The young man thought, when signing an agreement, you need to give something in return, and if you use the power of a demon, you need a human sacrifice. Many conditions are not in favor of Quan, and he almost sold himself. Confused, Yui asked what sacrifice meant. The girl was already standing in the center of the pentagram. With a torch on fire in his hand, Wang smiled cheerfully at her. Shan yelled hysterically at the boy, "Why get rid of her in such a strange way?" But the girl did not hear the answer, because it was already too late. The fire broke out and she began to disappear. Watching this, Quan rejoiced at his peace. A cloud of ash and sparks engulfed the room. The system announced that the last daredevil had left the game. Mission Bloody Towers had ended. The demon team was declared the winner with a reward of 50 points. Whoever survives the rest of the game receives an F rank gift. After earning 20 points for killing 2 opponents, Wang returned to personal space with the second level. The boy was relieved to note that the feeling of pressure had disappeared because quest artifacts could not be taken with him, and the time of using the contract with the demon had come to an end. Our hero thought about the fact that he could have been left without his last victim if he had allowed Shan to run the tower on his own. After all, he thought that there were not so few fugitives who did not fulfill the terms of the contract to the end in the game. The system announced the assignment of another level to a player who has passed a high-ranking dungeon and a special artifact, Demon Code. Wang was madly glad that he got this incredibly valuable thing. A message has been received that the data of the third level will be updated when the next dungeon is launched. The young man gloatingly noted that other newcomers failed to achieve such success. The boy himself decided to work diligently in the future in order to surpass even the elders. But suddenly, he stopped all his fantasies. It's time to deal with what was happening in the real world. Quan mentioned that he wasn't injured again, so he must be fine. Meanwhile, the ambulance was too calm. Lin was wary of asking why the doctor wasn't doing anything. Jonah replied to the girl that he was constantly monitoring the boy's condition. She didn't have to worry because everything would be fine. Wang Quan player card, level 3. Equipment, Coin of Luck, Back Effect Sword, broken. Artifacts, Demon Code. Abilities, Forced Action. Number of points, 135. Jonah reported to Zila that the target had been successfully captured. All she had to do was fill out the documents. The researcher with special powers answered the boy that he worked too slowly because information about other samples of this batch has long been sent. The woman pounced on him for the additional troubles of the logisticians because of an unexpected gift. Frightened, Shan tried to apologize home, realizing that she had definitely not spent time in the hospital. Jonah explained that the target showed signs of life, so he had no choice but to act accordingly to the situation so as not to arouse suspicion. Standing by the bed on which our hero was lying, Zila asked in surprise what the guy meant. Going to the exit, Jonah did not clearly say that the body could have moved from the starting point, or some system malfunctions occurred. The woman became interested in this case. It was a month before the next batch of samples arrived, so she decided to do her best research on this one. Touching Wang's cheek, the special researcher immediately became flaky. She thought the boy had a pretty attractive look, so she was sure he would give her a lot of fun. Jonah had nothing against it, only reminded her not to forget about reporting. Zila angrily replied that she remembered everything. Leaving the room, the woman said that it was necessary to transfer the data in time, otherwise the old man would grumble again. Left alone, Quan continued to lie with his eyes closed. But the boy was very angry. Wang noted that he did not spend much time in the game, but his body had already been stolen. The enjoyment of the game and the prospect of becoming stronger wasted. He came to the conclusion that he was underground because he was going down the elevator. CCTV cameras were visible everywhere. There was an electronic lock on the door, a ventilation grill near the ceiling. Our main character pondered how to use 3 new F rank cards to escape. He thought that if he combined them in the best way, it would not be difficult to leave this place. Despite this, the player knew that escape did not solve the main problem, who these unknown people were. The boy did not know the goals of the strangers, their powers, and in general, what they had to do with possessions gods, as well as how they managed to find him. In this case, if Quan manages to escape, they will immediately find him. To expose oneself was to give unconditional preference to one's enemies. The guy decided to collect as much information as possible. But the hardest part was not revealing yourself. Wang realized that he might not worry about the health of his real body because he felt comfortable. So he decided to concentrate on preparing for the next mission. There were 12 hours left until the start of the quest. The guy decided to take advantage of this time to become stronger. Our main character noticed with surprise that you can make friends in this game. A couple of players from the past mission sent a request. Sui Miao asked to be forgiven for leaving the mission so quickly and leaving the boy alone. Liu Shenjun encouraged the newcomer not to be afraid of anything and not to panic, and sent him a video file. Quan was happy with their message. The boy realized that the players had not yet received the news of the victory. The video has been uploaded. Our hero, opening it, heard a fanatic performing a rhythmic song. The boy sincerely appreciated the efforts of the elder, but preferred that his eyes did not see it. Quan decided to notify his new friends that he had accidentally won the quest due to the incoherence of the brave. However, he first saw an offer, which had just come from Miao for a new mission. There was no penalty for losing, but you could get good rewards. Wang quickly replied that he had still not recovered, but was eager to go to the dungeon with her. At Sui's invitation, they had to go to a special dungeon. The game is scheduled to start in 30 minutes. Legends of an unusual village, they were already close. At night, the old moon shone in the sky. Artifact Eye. Putting your hand to the surface, you can see what is on the reverse side as if in a mirror. Range limit, 2 meters. Changning is a quiet and cozy town with a well-developed mountain business. An ancient booklet was recently found in the mines. Gossip about the evil force hanging around at night crawled. The archaeologist Professor Rhodes entrusted 5 research specialists to visit there and find out the truth, or else to refute the rumors. Legends of an Unusual Village are a collective game. Location length, Changning Township, players must not leave its territory. Mission, to return the E-rank artifact in 7 days runic writings. Day 1, 8 in the morning, Rose Hotel. Quan gloomily noted that in this quest all players are professional detectives. The old man was their customer. Professor Rhodes sat tied up. He shouted indignantly at his hired researchers. Xing Ju, boxer, level 8, tried to find out information about the book with his fist threats. Carefree drinking, Sui Miao assumed the customer possessed certain data if she dared to hire detectives. Wang was enlightened by the idea that torture is the best way to get an archaeologist to talk about everything he knows. At the same time, the boy thought about why there is no reward for completing this mission. Ying Fan, AFK level 10, explained to him that entrance to a special dungeon is only possible with a special invitation ticket, and the reward is the artifact itself, runic writings. Suddenly, Quan recalled that Lin Yao mentioned special items that players distinguish from others and become the basis for unique abilities. Luo Xiaolan, self-confident attack level 9, reported that upon reaching the 10th level, the player is required to decide on their specialization, with special artifacts helping with this. The girl was surprised to ask Wang if he was really on the third level because she believed that he simply had the ability to hide his information. The guy embarrassedly confirmed that he is a beginner. Ying shouted indignantly at Miao for bringing such an assistant. In response, Sui calmly noted that Fan herself can cope with the task. Xingjue gladly reported that he had received information. His grandfather was the head of an archaeological expedition, but the mayor of the city took the found literature for himself. Xiaolan urged everyone to quickly move towards the identified goal. Ying said it had a lock, so you can use any machine, and thanked that Miao allows them to win without a fight. Wang looked at the girl questionably, because the mission involved a team game. The girl answered that this is exactly what it is, but there is only one book that is a reward, so everyone who wants to get it will work alone. Sui added that this is why success in this quest depends on the number of tickets collected, which can be used to bring many friends. There are only 6 of them in this dungeon, 3 of which are hers. She gave 1 ticket to Quan to dissipate and practice. The other gave to a friend who really should have helped her, but at the last moment decided not with a peer. Our hero asked if this ticket was really such a valuable thing. In response, I heard that it is so because a special artifact can be obtained only in this dungeon. Miao remarked that the boy felt guilty for accepting her invitation. Wang agreed with this in a diminished way. The girl told the young man not to worry. Although she saw the system notification after sending him a message, she promised to take it with her and does not regret it. Sui assured that she was ready to give everything to Wang at the time. In any case, she did not have a better candidate. The guy thoughtfully said that they need to complete the task earlier than other players. Miao noted that this is not a dungeon of the lowest difficulty level, and the other 3 players are pretty good. And yet, Quan intends to try a quest? To this, our hero simply said that when he is asked for help, he should make every effort. The girl concluded that it is better to leave as soon as possible. When that troika makes a mess, the police will block traffic. Newcomers are still not enough to face a large number of firearms. Surprised, Wang looked at Sui questioningly. She explained that the newcomer would soon become accustomed to the game and realize that dungeons are just inside playgrounds. It is worth carrying out missions quickly and efficiently, and do not worry about the consequences. This is the policy of local players. Miao recalled that our hero had already seen how they had dealt with an ordinary NPC, so she assumed that a kidnapping of the mayor or a raid on the city hall was currently planned. The guy called the police. Calling himself a decent citizen, he said that several thugs are going to attack the head of the city. Wang then approached Sui to go to the police station and write a statement. The girl asked what this had to do with their main goal. Untying the professor, the young man reported that his methods are to mobilize all the forces of the dungeon, limit the enemy's freedom of action, and ensure maximum convenience for maneuvers. Channin Main Street. Day 1, 8 o'clock and 50 minutes. Miao said that you can put marks on the map. Therefore, they will be able to mark shops, hospitals, or anything in their path. She added that all such dungeons have a similar infrastructure, but it will not be superfluous to investigate the surrounding situation. Quan reviewed the panel with interest and thanked for the information on such a feature. The hurricane said not to worry about the non-player character hearing their conversations because any actions or words of the player are white noise for him. Our hero noticed that, given the architecture and appearance of passers-by, the action takes place in America in the 20s, and therefore the policy of the administration must be appropriate. Wang thought that if the strength of the opponents at least roughly corresponds to the strength of Miao, then relying on NPC was not better. With doubt, the young man considered possible methods: discord, unexpected attack, poison, mobilization of troops, or switching to the side of evil spirits. Sui cheerfully noted that it shouldn't be done because in the dungeon of cooperation, players can't start an open confrontation. The boy realized with horror that in the cooperative dungeon, one player was responsible for the other's faults. The trio arrived at the police station. Wang noted that ultimately any information was useful to them and people are quick on hand and brave enough to surprise them. Before the young man had time to go to the room through the open door, a bullet whistled near his face. A policeman who shot at uninvited visitors cursed and threatened to kill demons. Hiding behind the door, Quan cursed himself. He noted that people here are not brave, but simply aggressive. Miao asked what they should do now because some NPCs cannot be talked to at all. Wang suggested to begin with to calm down the mad policeman. The girl agreed. She decided to take advantage of the effect of surprise, so, breaking the window, she quickly broke into the room. Our main character applied forced action and the policeman could not move. Quan approached him that they had information about a group of outlaws who had infiltrated Channon. That's why the three of them came here to get help. The policeman humbly offered the guests to sit down. The man immediately guessed that in front of him was the citizen who had recently called the police station, so he introduced himself to the trio as the head of the police of this town. Wang approached him, telling him that they were specialists hired by the professor to investigate a case of evil spirits and ancient books that had been found in the mine. Our hero added that they became aware of a group of soul eaters who want to steal ancient writings. So for safety, he asked to discuss with the head of the city the transfer of these books to them. The policeman displeasedly stated that rumors about evil spirits and thugs are the tricks of one old man. That elderly man said he had left a life of crime in the past and returned to Channon to live out his years. But he actually smelled money, so he rushed to town. It was he who sent someone to steal ancient books and uses similar methods to distract the police. Quan asked with great surprise if the writings had already been stolen. Miao asked that the finds are now indeed with criminals. The chief of the police department confirmed that that strange man should have them. Our hero asked if anything criminal had happened in Channon recently. The manager replied objectively that in his youth he was the best shooter in this city, so for several years there was no big deal here. Leaning towards Wang, Sui inquired why the boy asked about it, to which he pointed to a message from the system. He received it as soon as they entered the police station. A side mission emerged, to find the real criminal. The reward was a dungeon coupon. Miao scowled that she did not have such a task and did not understand the reason for it. Quan informed the chief of police that they were going to the head of the city to find out about the current state of affairs and offered him to join them. However, he shrugged off the offer. Instead, the policeman gave his gun. The system notified that F-level gear had been received. Defender. Holding a weapon in his hand, our hero thought with fear that he had launched some side mission again. The guide turned to Miao if, after talking with the policeman, she sometimes did not notice any changes or the appearance of the buff. But he himself immediately noticed that it is more important to complete the main quest at the moment. Instead of answering, Sui pointed to permission for the investigation, explaining that it was a temporary thing common in many dungeons, like a systematic feature to help players distinguish friends from enemies. Quan was happy with such a convenient function. Now it became clear to him why the policeman sent them to the head of the city. After leaving the building, he asked if the hurricane could jump on the balcony of the second floor. Miao wondered why he wanted it, because he himself said that they were going to the mayor for more information. The player explained what the police gave them investigation warrant, so it will be difficult to investigate the department. Standing in front of the office door and holding a weapon, our protagonist ordered Sui to be on the alert. After spying with help Vichka that there is no one in the room, the young man informed that they can enter. Miao blew the door open with one powerful blow of her blade. Rhodes frantically shouted at the players for deciding to destroy the police station. Exhausted by routine work, the hurricane explained that they were looking for clues and equipment, because it was as if this is exactly what the archaeologist sent them here for. Wang found it strange that grandfather could not remember his own orders. There was disorder on the second floor. The elderly man reminded that he instructed them to find the book and not to arrange a Garmider. Quan said it was okay, because they applied to the police chief and he allowed his own investigation. Comforting Rhodes, our hero explained that all the policemen are currently in custody, so the detectives have to find what interests them on their own. Suddenly, Miao saw a portfolio on the table. The latest records referred to strange incidents that happened in the city after the discovery of ancient runes. Wang picked up the list and read there. The orphanage, the mines, the criminals mentioned by the police chief as well as the mayor. The guy concluded that the books should be in one of these places. Sui said that according to the information received, it should be a chain of linked quests. However, the main challenge is to find the books and the plot is not of interest to her. Quan noted that in any case, they had a warrant, so he offered to search the places they would come across. Then, he turned to the professor to find a car for them. However, Rhodes was nowhere to be found. Seizing the opportunity, he escaped in a stolen car. This time, our main character decided not to use public transport but to borrow a police car. The guy assumed that 3 other players were currently near the administration, so heading there, they risked meeting them. So Kwon offered to go somewhere else so that there would be no confusion on whose side they were. It was decided to visit the orphanage. The hurricane asked how our hero was going to use the points received for winning the last game. He replied that he had not yet finally decided, but understood that in the early stages, it was necessary to become as strong as possible. However, the player did not leave the persistent feeling that even after spending all the points, he still would not succeed. Meow agreed that the guy should invest in improving the living conditions of his personal space. So, for example, at the 3rd level, a system of ranks and titles becomes available at Pay Therefore, special pool systems on the 7th, a special system for improving characteristics and the like. The girl added that the real game begins only after the 10th level with the receipt of a special artifact, because in the early stages, most abilities soon become useless. Sui concluded that after the 5th level with the special pool system, it will be easier to get what you want. Kwon asked what it was done to assess your abilities and find strengths. The girl agreed, because beginners should get used to the game and learn its mechanics. But if you give them all the weapons and capabilities at once, they will not know how to use them. The hurricane noticed that they were driving too long. Wang replied that they were moving for no more than 10 minutes, but it was already noon. Then, the girl reminded that they were in a special dungeon, and it seemed that they could not quickly and calmly deal with everything. Initially, Meow planned to call the guy here to practice and get used to the game. His head worked well, but most beginners are unable to make a decision at a critical moment. The car was approaching a dark figure. Sui said it was time to practice. The hurricane promised to help Kwon, although it knew it had a bunch of weapons, so it had to try to figure it out by itself. The guy pressed the gas decisively. Meow screamed at Wang in fright, which he decided to do. The young man gloatingly replied that he was going to say hello to the female monster. The car flew into an obstacle at high speed. A powerful explosion rang out, and a cloud of dust flew several meters. The car was completely wrecked. Our main character was saved by an airbag. A barely conscious young man stated that in the next life it is worth paying more attention to road safety. Sui lost 27% of HP and injured her left arm and abdomen. There was also a bleeding debuff. She displeasedly stated that she got out of the car herself and destroyed that monster. Smiling, the boy explained that since he uses auxiliary abilities, he only has to take risks. A frustrated Meow guessed how Wang had won the previous game. Looking at the consequences of the explosion, our main character asked the girl if this monster was the same evil spirit. Tashi answered that he was more like a zombie, but since he was able to break the car like that, his physical strength is much greater than that of an ordinary dead man. Kwon seriously asked her how many monsters of this level the girl could destroy using all her power. She replied that about 5 or 6, but considering that the zombies have no brains, it will be possible to win even with more. The boy asked if there would be 100 times more monsters, because right now a crowd of hungry dead was rapidly approaching them. Both players ran into the nearest building as quickly as possible and locked themselves inside. They slipped a huge closet to the front door. Knocking on the walls of the house, a bunch of hungry dead people wished death to foreigners. Kwon noted that these are not ordinary zombies, because they can run fast, jump, even talk. Sui suggested that these are small bosses at a low level, but do not work. Suddenly, someone from the crowd broke the glass and several monsters broke into the room. Our hero said that it is useless to hide indoors. Meow grabbed its mountain blade and began clearing the way, destroying enemies one by one. In a few minutes, the players managed to get outside. They started running fast down the street. The girl angrily remarked that according to Wang, the monsters should not have entered the house. The young man confirmed that the room was safe, and the zombies had to go around the building. However, once the players entered the house, their defenses disappeared. Even the master turned into a monster to join the hunt. The angry dead called to drive out the violators. Kwon noted that the zombies swore at uninvited guests as if players should just open doors that were broken everywhere. It occurred to him that the room would be safe if someone from the house invited them in. girl, she angrily asked if he would wait for an invitation when the whole city was full of evil spirits. Looking around, the guy said that in fact there are not only monsters here. A light was on in one of the houses. 3 players sat carefree at dinner. Xingju asked how things were on the street. Xiaolan looked at the screen and reported that the zombies have not yet parted ways, but they are not going to enter the room either. They just wander aimlessly around the house. The data was obtained thanks to the launched drone. Ying suggested that rooms that were not open were inactive areas that could not be entered by monsters. One of his piercing rings was not wasted, as it gave the trio a place to rest. However, Fan thought this quest was much more difficult than they had previously assumed. During the day, large-scale police patrols take place in this small town, not only with powerful firepower, but also with an extremely high response rate. After sunset, monsters appear in all the streets and have to flee. The quest turns into an endless race. Ying reflected on the fact that they had no information about the subject they were looking for. And every part of the mission from beginning to end is a high-intensity battle. It felt like things were going wrong. An unexpected knock alerted the 3 players. They asked outside the door if there was anyone at home. Quan politely explained that he and the girl were agents hired by the police, so he asked to open them. Ying and Luo had a hard time making a decision and were busy considering whether to let unexpected guests in. In such a small town, there really was an opportunity for a chance meeting, especially if you hide in a safe place. AFK believed that this couple would make their zone dangerous, or they could use it as blackmail. Our main character thought that if the trio revealed their personalities, there was a high probability that the shelter would be destroyed and the players would move somewhere else. Quan asked the girl to protect him from monsters for a while so that he could carry out his plan. The doors and windows in the house were completely closed, thanks to which it was not possible to see what was happening outside. That's why Wang thought eye with his trump card. The boy loudly shouted that the police station has important tasks that require the cooperation of every resident. He hoped to fraud the players into opening the door. Ying solved their tactics, and if it weren't for the drones launched earlier, those players could really have succeeded in cheating. He gloatingly thought he felt sorry for this couple who didn't know what was going on inside. Fan decided to act out the skit. Clamping his nose with his hand and thus changing his voice, he pretended to be an NPC who allegedly did not want to let foreigners in. Both AFK and Quan players were absolutely convinced that the advantage was on their side at the time. Sui Miao was exhausted from the constant attack, but there were no fewer dead. They continued to advance, calling on each other to kill foreigners and protect their own. Although Miao was outraged by the task entrusted to her, she admitted that the feeling of trust given to her pleased her. The girl did not consider herself a person who can think. She recalled an incident in her life when the manager called her uninitiative and threatened her for calling a correspondent. Sui admired and at the same time feared the intelligent, who could easily solve problems. She scolded herself for always relying on physical strength even in the game. Despite the fact that her blade is getting stronger from battle to battle, the hurricane could not get rid of the feeling of confusion and helplessness. However, now the player has found someone who can point her to the right path. The girl recalled Wang's behavior and actions under various circumstances during the past mission. Miao decided that she just needed to fight with all her might. With a formidable look, she delivered a powerful, devastating blow to the enemies. The girl knew that she could rely on a beginner for everything, and it didn't matter if it was negotiations and strategy or schedule and game. Sui knew she was shedding blood now to cover up Quan and help kill people on a battlefield that was inaccessible to her. The hurricane looked around and saw that the boy was still trying to persuade the players to open the door. Realizing the absurdity of such a situation and no longer having the strength to continue fighting monsters, Miao made a new decision. While going to the house, she informed the boy that she would manage everything on her own with the help of her mountain blade. Wang said if the girl wanted to break down the door, she should wait until he hid. Sui, ignoring the request, replied to him that if the boy died with her. She swept the door down with a powerful blow. Ying Fan began to make excuses that since they didn't have a team chat, there was a misunderstanding. Now he realized that the players turned to them for help. With a forced smile, Wang agreed that all this was indeed a mistake, but there are no such people who would not consider it wise to unite and cooperate. While the two had a peaceful conversation while sitting on the roof of the building, the other 3 players tried to fight off the monsters. They called on the boys not to terrain it, but to help them. Quan justified himself by the fact that he is still a beginner and did not acquire the appropriate combat skills, and recalled what his role was in this game, citing his portfolio. It said that an ignoring expert would get double points if he did not cause losses and use his abilities. In addition, the man believed that it did not make sense for him to do something with monsters of this size, because it could exceed the upper limit of the fighting power of such unemployed people as himself. Wang thought about the fact that the combat power of the team was not revealed. It was not necessary to hope for safe zones, but it is worth managing to pass any tests with certain conditions. Ying agreed that it was indeed necessary for players to complete some challenges or reach specific locations for these zombies' attacks to stop. Mentally, he appreciated Quan's sharp mind. However, she did not agree with the boy. Exhausted from the battle, she offered to make efforts together to destroy all the monsters. In her view, that was the solution to the problem. AFK offered information sharing because it believed that the main difficulty was gathering intelligence, not finding items. So the first tip indicated the administration. But due to the fact that this city is too big, the trio drove almost all morning, which annoyed the players quite a bit. They were helped by an elderly man whom they picked up on the way. Wang mentally remarked that Grandpa would be better off staying with him and working with the police. Ying suggested that due to the proximity of the city hall to the police station, they encountered a large number of armed NPCs, so the players did not have time for a thorough investigation. In the end, they never found the head of the city. Fan was confident that the mission items were not there either. He said that the people who persecuted them turned into monsters after sunset. Therefore, players could not do anything due to lack of playing experience. Then Ying turned to our hero and noted that there is a buff of the police camp, so other players could find some useful clues. Throwing him a notebook, Quan said he had read all the information from the police that could be related to books and evil spirits. AFK clarified that the players came to the children's shelter because it was here that evil spirits were first discovered. Wang explained that at first they were driving a car, but there were too many monsters on the way, so they had to hurry. However, the distance turned out to be much greater than expected. So currently, there are players who absolutely need to strengthen their mobility. Luo Xiaolan noted that she has the ability to increase mobility, but the orphanage is on the opposite side of the street from them. Suddenly, our hero was struck by the thought that the quarter in which they had just been and fought was actually quite small. Several children gathered in one of the rooms of the shelter. The girl asked in fright whether the strange sounds from the street were the same evil spirit that had come recently. The children watched the front door in horror, assuming the most incredible things. One girl thundered at the babies so that they would not say nonsense. After all, it will not be easy for their teacher to explain everything to the police, and this in turn flows to their adoption in the future. The elder reminded everyone that they agreed to fish and look for rabbits at night and eat less during the day, so that the mentor would not turn to others for help. In addition, she firmly assured that there are no evil spirits in the world. At this time, someone's hand appeared in the gap. Grabbing a girl pale in terror by the shoulder, Quan turned to the children with an offer to have a pleasant conversation. A sleepy teacher came down the stairs, who noticed that the room was quite noisy, from which she assumed that the children were awake again. She noticed in surprise that some men were talking to frightened children. People who did not know each other were rummaging around the room. Xingjue was relieved to say that they finally have time has appeared for searches. Horrified by this event, the teacher let the flashlight out of her hands in confusion. He fell down and crashed. This caught the attention of our main character, who wanted to say hello and introduce himself. However, the woman instantly grabbed the knife and, closing her eyes out of fear, forgot the thieves to move away from the children. Afterwards, she pounced with a blade on Quan, who tried to explain that they were not criminals. Retreating from the attacker, the boy carelessly touched the closet, which began to fall on him. Fan rushed to help instantly. When the cabinet fell down with a roar, the surprised players noticed that he was holding a small, frightened girl in his arms. Sui desperately started calling Wang Quan, trying to find out if he survived. And while Miao was helping the guy get up, Xiaolan noted that our hero is not lucky. Sometimes monsters attack, sometimes furniture. He wrote everything off as random. Ying let the girl go to the teacher, and Wang scornfully noted that, as it turned out, fun liked the children. However, AFK immediately asked if the players had a side quest task, protection of children, the reward for which was a coupon for the purchase of a special item. Our main character was surprised by the presence of a personal mission, but immediately remembered that he also received a similar task at the police station. Xiaolan admitted that she had also received a similar side quest, the small town of Changning, and was very surprised that others did not have one. Xingju admitted that he forgot to fulfill his personal mission, revenge, as he needed to throw his heels at the time. Miao admitted with displeasure that one among others had not received such a task, and our hero thought about the fact that the number of key NPCs is equal to the number of players. Wang concluded that the last task, which belonged to Sui Miao, had to be mine-related. Fan turned to the teacher, but she suddenly began to beg him for a pardon for the children with tears in her eyes. A very annoyed Ying yelled at her that he only wanted to know the information. The teacher said that she did not understand them correctly, because they just wanted to learn rumors about evil spirits in the city. She explained that recently, one of the pupils went to play to the river at night. Returning, the girl said that she saw evil spirits in the mining area opposite. The children began to say that the evil appeared because of the dug book. The woman immediately stopped them and emphasized that the mayor had invited a famous archaeologist, so the problem would soon be solved. Quan and Ying looked at each other. It occurred to both of them that the professor was invited by the head of the city. The hurricane concluded that the only clue about the mine is repeated with others. Looking at the map, the boxer reported that the mine is located on the other side of the city. Wang approached the teacher and, pointing to a tied grandfather, asked if it was the same professor. The girl began to remember something and then unexpectedly ran and threw a knife at Rhodes. The players quickly intercepted this surprise attack, preventing the woman from completing it. Our main character leaned towards the gloomy archaeologist and asked him to explain everything. Quan asked why all the residents of Channon would want to attack him as soon as they saw him. Enraged, Rhodes protested that he knew nothing, as he had hired researchers himself and they were only required to find lost writings. Threatening with a gun, Wang indicated that he was mindful of his employer. However, the conditions of the mission did not require him to remain alive. Then the professor said that last month he received a letter from the head of the city, which talked about the found strange ancient book. Something whimsical happened in the excavated mine, which affected the work of the workers. Hoping to be able to restore everything, Rhodes read the text of the letter. But suddenly, there was an accident, and a bright white light covered the whole city. All the inhabitants began to wish death to the stranger. While the elderly man was talking, the children approached the boxer and started beating him to force him to let their teacher go. Miao decided to help Xingju and hit the girl with all her might. The professor assumed that everyone was attacking him because he was the one to blame for that disaster. However, the grandfather pleadingly assured the players that he wanted to find the book to bring everything back. The system issued a notification to Wang that his side mission was to find the real criminal is completed and he has received a coupon for a special item. The guy confirmed that Rhodes was really the cause of everything that was going on. The archaeologist asked him to let go. Instead, the player bombarded him with questions. What happened when the detectives arrived in the city? Why does the professor want to restore the anomalous book? What did he do all month? Other players watched their dialogue in surprise, not understanding what it was all about, because the mission description from this NPC did not completely match the information provided to them. Suddenly, Rhodes said that wordless words torn and glued are a reflection of the starry sky on people. Quan began to realize with horror that the professor had begun to cast spells and, threatening him with a gun, tried to stop him. However, a powerful explosion rang out in a moment. People and furniture scattered under the influence of a bright wave. An enraged Rhodes reported discontentedly that the ceremony had almost come to an end, and the players only had to obey him and stay here calmly for another 3 days. Instead, the mission members looted the police station, attacked the city hall, stole cars, sneaked into houses, etc. The professor stated that they spoiled the spiritual aura of the whole city. Wang realized that the man had the book all along, and he only wanted to delay their research. Ying noted that the mission had long seemed messy to him, and the players seemed to be just running non-stop. Fan concluded that their goal was actually to search for a document with spirit runes, not to give it to an archaeologist. Activating the ability of the E-level technical fireball, the boxer self-confidently reported that he solved the professor's tricks. Heading to Rhodes at full speed, Xing announced that the game would end right here. But the player encountered magical resistance from the enemy, so his fist did not reach its target. Luo Qiaolan also decided to attack the opponent with her rifle, proclaiming the end of the battle. The archaeologist used another magical trick, and in a moment, the boxer noticed a huge hole in the girl's chest. Luo Xiaolan's health record dropped to 0, so the injured player was out of the game. Xing shouted why she was blocking his skills because his CD is very powerful. The girl did not have time to answer because she disappeared. But in a moment, the boxer received a message that his friend wanted to start voice communication, but the professor rejected it. Wang guessed that Xiaolan and Rhodes suddenly switched positions during the attack. Sui suggested that this could be the effect of an archaeologist's spell. Observing that Xing's attempts didn't have much of a result, Miao asked if he would manage on his own. The boxer recalled that he was fighting the ringleader, so other players could have an impact on the situation. Sui told him to back down if he couldn't deal with his opponent. The boy agreed to take a break to bandage his hand. Then she announced that everyone would stay as far as possible, and she would deal with the opponent on her own. The player swung her powerful blade, saying that it didn't matter what ability Rhodes used because it would immediately run out. However, like other players before her, Miao faced magical resistance, and this time it was directed against Quan. The blade of the sword steadily approached our main character, who seemed to freeze in surprise and shock. Quan then flipped his lucky coin at lightning speed and was able to dodge moments before the fatal blow. Wang informed Sui that, as it turned out, the professor could switch places for anyone, even those who didn't fight him directly. Girl, she turned to the boy that he could really die. But how good that he had such a wonderful ability. The boy felt the sarcastic tone of her speech. Sitting on the floor and wrapping the damaged arm, Xing noticed Rhodes approached him. While the archaeologist stood in front of Zhu with the book in hand, Quan noticed that the spell was not time-limited. So the question arose, how to deal with it then? Ying took the children to a safer place and retrieved his knife, informing them that staying away this time would not work. Fan offered Sui cooperation, then added that the player who scores the last shot point could receive compensation of 1,000 points. Miao agreed. The man then told her that the effect of an archaeologist's ability was to change positions with other players. And at that time, the boxer tried his best to escape from the enemy and called on the participants to help him as soon as possible. Otherwise, he would die. AFK announced that it would apply a scale version of its ability, but it would affect everyone. Ying applied the E-rank artifact, the Dark Tentacles, with which he seized the surprised professor. Fan informed the archaeologist that from now on he has nowhere to run because no matter who he swaps places with, the player will be able to increase strangulation everywhere. Of course, Ying understood that there was a possibility of an attack directed at himself. Choking is a special type of continuous attack, so a sudden movement will cause one of his teammates to die. Fan invited the professor to take the appropriate step. However, by surprise, our main character ordered to stop immediately. Ying asked Wang why he should leave everything when his opponent is almost finished, but Rhodes was almost strangled. The hurricane was relieved to say that the matter had been done. However, immediately after that, the system announced that the health indicator I Sui Miao was 0, so she was out of the game. The stunned players stood as if dug in. Ying could not understand how a girl could die so instantly. It seemed incredible, but there was not much time to think because a boxer appeared behind him, warning about the danger. Standing side by side, Xing Jue asked Fan how they would fight now. To this, the teammate replied that it would definitely be difficult. AFK also noted that Sui had such a physique that it was unlikely that she could be killed or even scratched. Ying added that given this, the archaeologist's ability is not at all displacement as they thought. But it was very important to determine exactly what the ability was, otherwise they would not be able to fight at all. So taking all the factors into account, Fan decided that they should all be healed in first. Looking at his back, Xing noted that he always does. However, Rhodes did not pass the rear and was not going to let anyone go. He cast a spell blocking the exit. The boxer announced that in this case, their opponent would face his death here. Ying noted that the game will not come to an end. But it was at this time that our main character put a gun to the archaeologist's temple and ordered him not to move from his place. Ying asked if Quan was counting on a gun when he tried all the artifacts himself, but it turned out to be hopeless. Attaching the weapon to his head, Wang reported that this time everything was different because he caught Rhodes. The boxer did not believe that it really worked and made the professor stop. Fan asked why this happened. Our main character asked to remember what happened after the players left. Xingju replied that they took the car on both sides of the road to reach City Hall, but the journey was longer than the players expected, so the trio did not arrive until noon. Quan noted that he and Miao left later and reached the police station next to City Hall in less than an hour. Both men were stunned by what they heard. Fan asked how this could happen. Wang explained that during their friendly cooperation with the police, the professor ran away, then the trio of players met with him, and after that, they were able to reach the administration. Meanwhile, the boy and Sui went in search of an orphanage, but immediately noticed that dusk had already arrived. However, as soon as all the players met, they immediately found shelter. Fan realized with horror that time was not going right. It wasn't that the game provided little time to explore, but that it was only while with Rhodes that players could actually act effectively. Quan agreed with this. He explained that the archaeologist was the only active person in the city from the beginning. The elderly man looked at the boy in shock. Our main character added that all players are just myriads of his own inner personalities. Not fully understanding the information heard, the boxer clarified whether the whole battle really takes place in Rhodes's head. AFK noted that such an internal struggle allows the damage caused to be transferred to others. Wang concluded that only the fact that the young man had the determination to kill himself can restrain the professor. Xingjui asked in fright if this meant that players should be killed by their enemy or die of their own free will, but then how to avoid it. Grandfather shouted with a crazy look that the players had no choice but, without causing problems, to stay in this imaginary town for 3 days and die quietly. Our main character gloomily noted that in fact, Changning is not an imaginary city at all. All those innocent souls who were killed by the mad archaeologist came to take revenge. The woman was looking out the window. Her interviewer said there was no point in staying in a backward city, and if she really wanted to get involved in politics, he could secure a seat in the legislature. Turning to the interlocutor, the woman said that since she is the local mayor and promised the citizens to manage Channin well, she will not go anywhere. The miners diligently and persistently performed their work as the whole town was counting on them. Workers discussed the newly discovered new ore vein, so they believed that life would soon improve. Not a young man with a gun was sitting on the bank of a reservoir river and smoking a cigar. He admitted that he was an old scumbag, but threatened reprisals if his opponent dared to cause trouble in Channin. The police found the body of the murdered man. None of them could believe that it was done by one of the local residents. An angry police chief who arrived at the scene swore that he would definitely catch the killer. The teacher explained to the frightened children that there has been a little chaos in the town lately, but these are all matters for adults, and for now, they only need to grow up and not worry about anything. With a look full of gentle affection and love, she asked the children not to worry, because she intended to protect them. The professor with a crazy appearance was glad that he succeeded and no one could stop him. He ordered the citizens to give their humble souls as fuel for his eternal life. Ying Fan concluded that Rhodes used a special runic artifact to sacrifice the townspeople to trigger some magical ritual. But as a result of the manipulations, his mind was overwhelmed by a large number of mad and enslaved souls who eventually turned the archaeologist into a psycho. The boxer noted that the roles that the players got are actually 5 souls who are able not to lose themselves, and the side quests are hints that help them learn the truth. Quan clarified that most likely the killer obsessed with his plan, who was guilty of everything that happened, turned into a madman. Xing suggested that the boss cannot kill players directly because his attack causes body pain, but blood blocking is activated over time. That is why the wounded boxer was able to last so long. Ying noted that the time in the game is critical, namely 3 days to complete the mission, when the professor can completely complete the ritual and destroy the souls. Our main character said that this ordinary town was created in order to make souls think that they are still alive, thereby delaying time. Fan asked if they should continue to break illusions. It was also possible to rely on the dead to finally drive the archaeologist crazy. Wang noticed that the players were within range of the attack, meaning they had the ability to take control of the road's body. At the same time, it will mean suicide, and therefore they cannot fulfill the mission in any way. Ying asked if there was a way to hold the cross artifact, in which case he would cover the boy himself. The professor, who was surrounded by monsters, called for help, informing the players that if he died, they would also die. So there was no point in worrying about the dead. Rhodes promised to keep them alive if they helped him. He would definitely get new bodies for them as soon as he took control of the launch artifact. Quan said that there is one way that my grandfather mentioned, namely that if someone shares one body with him, they will get an artifact accordingly launched. That is, the actual subject of their mission. Remembering that he failed his task, Ying asked if there was any other way. Our main character reported that he has an artifact containing bug. With help, Codex can separate the soul from the body, but without a guarantee of success. There is also a possibility that all souls will die. Fan recalled that they only had 3 coupons for special items. He was willing to bet that everything would work out, but in case of failure, he would pay Sui Miao a huge compensation. Quan replied that everything will definitely work out because he understands sacrifice to some extent. He hoped that the demons of hell would have the evil soul of a professor. After all, he is also a separate soul that shares one body with our hero and therefore belongs to his personal soul. The system notified that the offering victim was successful. The boy was standing next to the body of an elderly man lying in the middle of the street. He declared that the task had been completed. The town enjoyed a deserted silence and peace on a clear day. Wang admitted that it was a really difficult mission. Fan suggested that our hero replace Sui Miao in her role in case the girl doesn't show up after all. The player, somewhat impressed by the offer, still agreed. Walking past the body of the murdered Quan, noticed something strange. On the neck of the deceased, Rhodes hung a badge with an unusual sign, which the boy had already seen before. This led him to certain thoughts. A whimsical tangle of events began to slowly unravel. By the bed on which the teddy bear was sitting and the clothes were lying, there was a sword, and there were shoes on the floor. The girl was lying in a bathtub with foam and clinging to her head in confusion. This time, the mission was again a failure and it upset her. The alert said a friend of Wang Quan wanted to call. Miao assumed that he was also killed, but the boy resisted for a long time. It turned out that he is capable of a lot. The young man received runic artifact and wondered how best to pass it on to Sui Miao. And the girl said that after death, a person determines his reality in the game, so he can stay in divine possessions. And then the girl realized that she missed the most important thing, and asked to help her get this relic as soon as possible. She added that there are separate characteristics at the bottom of the map. The Class E artifact did have 2 notes in the bottom box. They were marked with words soul and knowledge. The girl knocked on her head, saying that she knew that one of the characteristics would be soul. However, the second position was a surprise for her, and while Wang was spinning the map in her hands, Sui Miao said that 2 E-class relics could be used to synthesize an elixir that would level up the player. But success depends on the quality of the relics used. For example, to raise the level to status mercenary, it is necessary to synthesize artifacts with additional characteristics contract or war. And one of the derivatives of the word war is life. That is, this relic did not suit the girl at all. That's why she told the young man to keep the card to himself. If she finds a buyer, we'll share points with him. Quan thanked him because the relic could really agree with him. Sui Miao added that the guy's offer flattered her, so he can add 300 points to level up or synthesize the task with a map. This made the young man think, but he had to clearly decide on the desired level. This will help to avoid complications. After finishing the conversation, the girl noticed a drop of blood on her finger. She threw her hair back and saw a bloody morning. She could not understand why she suddenly appears and disappears as well. But Sui Miao quickly rejected all these thoughts and in front of the mirror, motivated herself that hard work would sooner or later bring the right relic. Meanwhile, Wang Quan, after completing the main mission, received an award for additional tasks. A gun appeared in his hands. His characteristics as a player at the previous level allowed him to choose a status. The law-abiding citizen provided for cooperation with the official forces of the game and compliance with the rules. Rampant had an advantage in driving, which was his strength. Any vehicle could bring bonuses. The most important thing is to notify about danger. He envisaged the search for ways to defeat the enemy from afar, to find his weak points without participating in battles. You have to choose carefully, because it is not known when the opportunity to change the status will appear. The young man doubted, because now he did not have a single fighting style. All his abilities were scattered, and this complicated the task. But then he read the game notifications and realized that there were rewards and a promotion system for additional tasks. And he already had the 5th level. The guy received a hook of cards with an offer. 1 shot in the shower, 10 points, 10 shots, 100 points. Upset and crying, Wang Quan realized that this game gave him a chance to earn well. He analyzed that he now has 199 bonus points. So there must be 50 left just in case, and the rest can be put to its own reinforcement. Next, it was necessary to choose a weapon that would contribute to the development of martial arts. The young man thought that most cards would have the abilities of an archer or a killer. Status exuberant. Characteristics of transport. Both initial potential and combat power were good. But the problem was that Wang had to fight not only in conditions divine possessions. He should think about his future status in advance. Pages where the knowledge of the soul is recorded can only be read with the help of the heart. And without the appropriate status, the sacred relic will lead to the pollution of the soul. Endless Possession Gods is a deadly game in which the player's actions are always limited. Our main character guesses that it will be so. In fact, it has many mechanisms for ensuring resurrection from the dead, warning about blood seals. So the danger to life is not as great as it seemed. Most of the players the boy met adapted quickly and quite well to the conditions here. Accepting that you can't quit the game, you should choose only easy locations, provided that you do not need to reach a high level or get as many sacred relics as possible. For most people, the need to survive in divine possessions may not feel as acutely as in reality. Wang Quan had already completed the script 3 times, so he had a certain margin of points, which were a kind of support for the guy. He currently had a 5th tier and 199 bonus points. Currently, the biggest threat was a secret organization that managed the entire gameplay in reality. Until now, they did not pose a threat, but the information that our hero could return to reality was not known to them. Escape would not be difficult, but risky, because the organization quickly finds such players. It was a great opportunity to go deeper into the system to learn the details of their design. And then you can make your own action plan. In order to calmly conduct an investigation, you must first remove all electronic devices for monitoring: cameras, ventilation, physiological tracking, electronic lock. Sounds picked up by Wang Quan suggested that personnel occasionally passed from outside. Because the organization is closely related to divine possessions, opponents of our hero could have considerable power. Therefore, a retreat plan in case of an emergency was needed. Offline, only sacred relics can be materialized by downloading. Everything you can rely on, only the hero's own abilities. Wang Quan had 2 friends, 2 downloads, and 1 relic. The guy made a choice. Now he had the status law-abiding citizen. Currently, he should receive cards with the characteristics of penetration, masking, but deception. Soon, an individual pile of cards, First Shadow Walk, was already generated for the young man. The drop coefficients of the E and D class cards were very low. Wang retrieved the coin and decided to use his most valuable Class E artifact. Hoping for the favor of fate, he chose 10 shots in a row. But there were no D-class cards at all, and only 3 E-class cards. The lucky coin doesn't seem to have affected the heap of cards at all, and maybe the system itself had limitations. The remaining 6 maps were common artifacts or equipment. But there was also an item of Class E, Trap. Our hero needed new effective abilities. He now had only 4 regulars. The remaining points are unlikely to be saved, so the guy decided to continue taking risks. But then, holding cards with his abilities in his hand, he looked at them again carefully. And then he realized that he underestimated them. If you activate the abilities he had together, you can get a pretty good combo. A girl from the service department was walking down the corridor. She complained that she had many cases and hoped that the boy in the detention center would soon be transferred from here. She went to the bed holding a syringe in her hand. At first, the girl had to record her survival status, satisfy physiological needs, and carry out planned cleaning. Suddenly, the light went out. The employee thought the cause was a lamp that burned down, and Wang Quan was already standing behind her. Ability, a mean intern, helped in this, a cunning creature fueled by people's fears. But the maximum it is capable of: turn off the light for 3 minutes on the nearest 50 square meters. Our main character grabbed a syringe from the girl's hands and held it near her neck, ordering her not to move. Then he asked what kind of place it was. The girl replied that they were in the Branch Federation, a branch in Linjiang. Wang then wanted to know what he was about to be pricked. In response, it was said that epinephrine, aero, modafinil, and a complex of physiological supplements, glucose and fatty milk. The state of the body is reflected on the mind, so the corporation injects supplements and stimulants at the beginning of the reception to increase players' ability to survive. Quan decided it was time to apply the spiritual tools available to him to test what was said. Opinion search has been launched. In the chaos of reflection and memory that reigned in the girl's head, there was still confirmation of her words. The guy actually thought he could read the thoughts, but he got meaningless noise and a lot of unnecessary information. However, this was enough to understand that what was said was true. After letting the girl go, our hero asked why the organization was taking the players. But she only said that she is an ordinary employee and does not have such information. And while the young man apologized for not understanding everything correctly, the girl joked that everything was fine, and she sneaked a button on the walkie-talkie behind her back. Wang Quan then apologized for what would happen next. And then he used a spiritual bomb, shock and shivering. The girl slowly sank to the floor unconscious. The guy wanted to know more, but there was no time for it. You can't delay the camera. The blindness of the shadows created by the magic of light and twilight will not last long. So he was going to use the body of a tech worker to get out of his place of detention. So Wang began to implement the escape plan. To begin with, the girl broke the cameras indoors, then forced her to report what had happened to security. In response, it sounded from the walkie-talkie that repairers would be sent to the storage. And then it became known that security personnel are being detained. They perceived it as a not serious situation and advised the girl to continue her business. Quan further suggested that the employee unlock the door locks using biometric data. The young man then placed the girl on a couch and connected her to physiological monitoring. Despite the discrepancy in their data, this will at least not cause the alarm to turn on. Finally, he worked with her memories, slightly correcting those that were before the girl fell into a coma. She had to think after waking up that it was a dream. Escape succeeded. Using a shadow step, the boy ran past the workers, who were trying to figure out why there was no light in the corridor. The dive has begun. It turns out that the environment in which the player lives in reality to some extent affects the type of world he will enter. The young man in glasses was briskly typing something on the keyboard. This connection was traced in a copy with a sacred relic. Our hero stood behind and asked if there was a way from the outside world to look into possession player gods. But the employee replied that it would already be seen through brainwaves or hormones. Even in rare cases, only single blurred images and sound are available. Suddenly, the man regained consciousness and began to resist, looking for who else was in the room. He realized that he hadn't even noticed when the lights were turned off. Wang Quan walked into the public records room. He decided to neutralize CCTV cameras with the magic of light and shadow. It is the ability to create holographic objects and project them into reality by controlling the effects of light and shadow. Therefore, in the control room, the security service employee was only surprised why one of the employees was looking for something in the archive at lunchtime. Trying to keep the viewing angle so as to deceive the camera, our hero read the records. It turns out that the Federation studied comprehensively kingdom gods. But suddenly an employee entered the room with cardboard boxes on a cart. The young man used the intern to turn off the light and then visually disguised himself and left the room with a shadow, avoiding unnecessary contacts. In emergency situations, you can also use the spirit tool to neutralize witnesses, erase the memory of what you saw, or force you to hide some movements. Even being a beginner in possessions gods, Wang was able to ignore the security system of the secret organization. But after feeling satisfied with himself, he felt unbearable pain. The head was cracking so much that the boy fell to his knees. Quan used too much of its power. Mental energy was exhausted, and the interface in reality did not provide hints. The spirit began to drift. It was dangerous, so our hero had to find a place to rest and recover. He had seen the schedule, so he knew it was storage time at 9 every day, and cleaning it up once a week at all. Therefore, hardly anyone will come here. It is a safe zone. The guy sat between the boxes and tried to structure and analyze all the information he already had. The Confederation wants to access information in the God's realm through players. This meant that the organization did not have access, and even more so, did not create this kingdom. Whatever their intentions and methods, sometimes rather crude, they cared about the players and protected their safety in reality. Thus, Wang Quan was not supposed to reveal its specifics, let alone run away hastily. Instead, he could share the results of his research on the Federation. He wrote a kind of recipe similar to a cipher in Miao's message. The boy had to use the information to speed up the process of gaining strength in Kingdom Gods and then consolidate their freedom in the Federation, becoming stronger. The young man was already tiredly drawn. Of course, this meant that they could not be found. Otherwise, capture would be the best option. Suddenly, a sleepy girl rose from the box next to her. She tried to understand what time it was, and our hero wondered why someone else was here. The stranger said in satisfaction that the fact that the boss will not find those who will stay here to sleep turned out to be true. Quan heard thoughts of the supervisor proofreading her for irresponsibility and then ordering her to return to work immediately. The girl tried to get her glasses but could not keep her balance and fell down on our main character. Landing right on top of him, she asked in surprise if it was really Wang, a family representative, in front of her the king. Lin Lin said that when she saw the young man lose consciousness, she immediately followed him to the ambulance. She wanted to know if the school or family should be contacted, but as a result, she was brought here against her will, not allowed to leave and forced to be responsible for cleaning in the logistics department. Wang apologized for the fact that everything happened because of him, but Lin Lin reassured him, saying that everything was fine. But the boy assured that he would find a way to get out of here as soon as possible. The girl jokingly added that you should not worry, and the Federation provides good benefits. She was provided with housing, food, insurance, work without overtime and high wages. The family can be contacted in 3 months and quit in a year. The story about all the advantages of such work confused our hero. He grabbed his chest. Asked by Lin Lin what the matter was, he said he really felt envious. Wang asked if players waking up after the game could give the Federation a resume. The girl didn't know this, but I heard that the young man's consciousness had moved into the game dimension and he woke up. The boy grabbed her shoulders and asked if she knew what had happened to the other players brought in. But Lin Lin didn't know. She could move only on the outer part of the room. She had no access to the laboratories. Wang realized that he would not learn anything else. When a little mental strength returns, the girl will not be able to continue the conversation. So he put his hand on her cheek. There was a risk that there would be too many memories that would be difficult to erase. The student noticed that the boy was upset. She unexpectedly fell into a strange game dimension and regained consciousness in the laboratory. The girl said that she does not know much yet, but our hero should not tell anyone that he may faint. It is better to expect news from her. Wang Quan applied a view of thoughts. This was to help influence Lin Lin's consciousness. This time, the young man was not left out somewhere. Everything was different. After a moment, the girl asked to be allowed to help him. The girl was carrying a cart through the corridor in which the boy was sitting. The hero arranged everything. In order not to attract too much attention, he will return to the temporary chamber, and he will be able to investigate the rest of the information next time. But one of the workers noticed them. Jonah ordered the girl to come. Lin Lin was afraid that now the whole plan would be revealed. Barely containing the excitement, she said she would not be able to help with access to the inner metropolitan area. However, it turned out to be superfluous. Jonah across the street was fully certified. He showed the room he had just left and said she would need help cleaning. Wang saw something he didn't expect. A glass sarcophagus stood in the middle of the room. There was an unconscious girl in it. It was Miao. Meanwhile, the worker said that he was too lazy to move defective material to destroy it. The stranger formed a huge wall of flames in the room and said there would only be some ash. So it will not be difficult to get rid of it. Sui calmed the girl who was crying. She said that the old pervert would no longer cause harm even if he left the hospital. The freed Meow then said goodbye while carrying her belongings in a cardboard box and left the office. The girl sat down on the sidewalk and spoke on the phone. She said she had already purchased a ticket home. He will come and stay there for several days at night. In response, she heard a scream, as if she offended someone who should not again, and because of this, she lost her job. She recalled knocking a senior manager to the floor to protect a colleague. So, if it can be considered an insult, then yes. But she did not tell her mother about this. However, she said that she knows her daughter well. But she added that Dad makes soup, so they are waiting for her. Memories of a family. Sui Meow sat and looked warmly at the photo of her with her parents. Once a girl overheard a conversation between two players. They discussed that there was gossip as if there was a chance to redeem their return to reality. You just need to become a professional. But the problem was that it was quite difficult to make sacred relics. Sui had a recipe but couldn't pick up the words. And regardless of the recipe, there is a risk of losing all the strength and power that has already been gained. The girl wanted to synthesize war and life. In a moment of total despair, a message from Wang emerged. The guy told a recipe that was supposed to be suitable for creation, a barbarian who combined life, nature, and honor. That night, who added war to everything. Sui was incredibly happy. A professional recipe that no one could reveal was in her hands. The girl admitted that the young man was not as simple as he seemed. Meow began searching the auction house War put up for sale. Now the girl had to draw another one glory and everything will be ready. But the search was interrupted by severe pain in the neck. Sui grabbed the place with her hand and cried from the unpleasant feeling. And in a moment, she fell unconscious on the floor. A system alert informed that the girl had been in the game for 5 months at level 10 and had never acquired a profession. The player had no potential and was chosen to wear probe. A subsequent alert notified her of her destruction. Sui could not understand where she was or what was happening. Memories, events from the past have become like engulfed in flames. Her consciousness tried to understand what was happening on the site, and after some time, her body got up. A new script was loaded and activated probe. The girl looked herself in the mirror. The condition was good. She heard the call. Our main character called. The boy shouted if Sui Meow was okay and how she was feeling, shocked by what he saw the day before. That girl didn't seem to understand anything. She only asked what it was about. The young man wondered if there was anything that caused discomfort. Meanwhile, Wang Quan had many questions in his head. Is his sister still alive, or is he looking at someone else? Can an injury in reality bring you back into the game? But Sui Meow just looked from under her forehead and asked in surprise why something should be wrong with her.